Hi there, Scott.
So you're now live on YouTube.
Thank you, Pat.
Hi there, Druska.
Hello there.
It will take us just a minute or two to get started. We will start in a couple minutes.
All right, Deb. So I'm going to back out of the meeting. Just a reminder that the recording's paused right now. So
Thank you.
And hi there, Heath.
all right, Deb. So
Hey, Kimberly.
How are you today?
Good. My computer's being a little slow, so
Okay.
that'll take me a sec.
No worries. You take your time. Okay. Hi there, Stacy.
Hello.
Looks like we have Scott there. There we go. Maybe he's gonna. Hi there, Scott.
Hello.
We'll just take a couple more minutes, wait for folks to pop on. Hi there, Ian.
How's it going?
And hi, Chuck. Good to see you. I think we've got Matt. Hi there, Matt. Okay. There's Chuck. Okay. So just a couple more moments. We get everything set up on the tech side. We'll get started.
I'm going to start recording so I don't forget.
Okay, by all
So we're
means.
going to start soon.
Yeah, and let us know.
This meeting is being recorded.
I mean, I'm ready whenever you are. I'm letting Race in right now.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think that's everybody that's going to be here today. I think that's our group.
Heath just messaged me. He said that he's having a little bit of trouble
Yeah,
getting on. So
he dropped off again, it looks like.
Yeah, he's been having computer issues. He mentioned that. So his computer, he said, was working slow. So we will just bear with him as that happens. So maybe we'll just do a slow start. I know that Brent won't be here with us today. He's supposed to be on a fabulous vacation somewhere wonderful, so he will not be joining us. But it looks like we have most everyone here. So to get it kicked off like we always do, please do just quick ground rules, remain on camera as unless things happen, of course, internet, computer issues, all of that fun stuff. So please remain on camera if you can. Please be ready to participate. We do have one recommendation we're going to work on today, and then smooth out the tweaks, changes, and adjustments to the other recommendations. So looking at those changes overall. So please be ready to participate, engage, and provide your thoughts, your feedback, your input. We'd love to hear from all of you. Hopefully this is a space where you feel comfortable agreeing and disagreeing on content as necessary. Saying that, let's listen to each other throughout the process to make sure that we're understanding where each of us are coming from. Be mindful of your airtime so that we are able to streamline through processes, minimize distractions to the maximum extent possible, and of course, raise your hand virtually or interrupt throughout if you have any questions or comments or concerns. And perfect timing. It looks like we have Heath back with us. Okay. So I'm going to share my agenda with you guys really quickly so we can just do a quick run through of that, like always. So today what we're going to do is we're going to start as we always do with any updates we have, any communication updates you have outside of the comments for each of your recommendations, and then any updates from FWP. So we'll do our general introductions first. Then we'll go into public comment, making sure that we do hear those voices from the public on their thoughts and ideas. We do have one recommendation to consider finalizing today, so we'll work on that for a bit of time. We'll try to take a break, and then we will review the recommendations that we had sent out previously that folks have made changes to, so confirm that those changes are within intent or revote as necessary. There's a bit of a discussion on ranking recommendations. We'll talk about what that looks like if we want to go down that path. And then, of course, we'll have our closeout remarks from the director. Hopefully, he'll be able to pop in. We'll be flexible when he's able to pop in. We're not quite sure exactly what time, but we'll be flexible and adapt our schedule accordingly. So it's just a heads up, this might switch in time and place. And then we'll close out with next steps and action items, as this will be our last meeting here. So what does the future look like, and where will we be going from here? Are there any questions, comments, concerns on the agenda? Thank you, Ian, for shaking your head. I'll say we're good with that. So I'll stop sharing. I'll open it up if there are any comments or discussion points that you have for communication externally that you want this group to hear about, aside from any of the recommendations that you are working on personally that will come up at that point. I think that might only apply to Ian at this point because this is the only one pending out there, but are there any points of communication that you'd like to discuss with this group at large? I'll just hold that for a minute in case. Okay. Well then, Deb, I can turn it over to you if you have any updates from FWP.
Yeah, hi everybody. Welcome to the last meeting. It went by pretty fast. So Hank will be on. He'll try to get on around 3, and he told me to just keep him updated via text if we're going quickly, and might want to have him pop on earlier, but he does have a meeting at 2, so he's trying to get ready for that. But he'll pop on around 3, he thinks. Just share some thoughts with you guys. The only other thing I wanted to add was I've heard some rumblings from some of you about voting, and please be comfortable in voting your priority, your conscience, your values. I mean, the value set that you guys are bringing to this is fairly unique to each of you, and that's why you guys were chosen to be on this work group. So please vote your value set and your conscience. Don't just go along with the flow. You guys all bring unique thoughts and issues and approaches to all these issues. So please, I just encourage that. And that's really all I had. Like I said, Hank will be on, and I'll close with our next steps at the end. So I won't go over those now, but we'll talk about the next steps at the end. We had about 26 people sign up for public comment, and it looks like there's 6 people on right now. Maybe more will be joining us, but just wanted to share that with you. I haven't been getting a whole slew of emails lately. I sent you the last few. One was from Brian McCullough in the last email I sent this morning, and he is on as well today. Again, when we do the public comment, if you have any questions that are relevant for your discussion today for the members of the public, you're welcome to ask them. I'll moderate that. Yeah, I just thank you for being here. I mean, this is a lot of your time, so I just really appreciate it. And that's all I have, unless anybody has any comments or questions for me. Okay.
Okay. Well, I guess we can move into our next section, which is the public comment portion. So, Deb, I think this will go back to you again just for public comment.
Yeah, so Jasmine will take this over, and we look like we only have, like I said, 6 people. So Jasmine, go ahead and give them 3 minutes apiece, time it, and I'll turn it over to you.
Perfect. So the first person we have registered for public comment is David Walrod. David, can you go ahead and unmute yourself? Perfect. You have
Yes.
3 minutes. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
You sure can.
Okay. I'm David Walrod, and I live in Missoula, Montana. As one of the directors for Montana Sportsmen for Fish and Wildlife, I'm representing the nearly 400 members who belong to our organization. The recommendation by Ian Wargo is an issue that Montana SFW is concerned about, that being the unchecked predation by large predators of our ungulate herds. Many of our members are sportsmen who live in western Montana and have experienced a decline of deer and elk. Region 1 in particular has one of the highest densities of large predators in the state. Region 1 leads the state every year in the number of wolves taken, in addition to having the highest take of black bears. Mountain lions are also in high numbers, in addition to an ever-growing population of grizzly bears. Montana Sportsmen for Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, Montana Sportsmen for Fish and Wildlife strongly suggests that Ian Wargo's recommendation be moved forward to the director of FWP for consideration. The law and the wolf management plan lay out the tools to address increased predator control, and we would like the citizen advisory group to consider predator management as a serious concern. And I'd like to say thank you to Ian for bringing this issue to the table, and thank you for allowing me to speak.
Perfect. Thank you. The next person on our list is going to be Brian McCullough. Brian, can you go ahead and unmute yourself?
Can you hear me?
We sure can. You have 3 minutes.
This is Brian McCullough. I'm on the sounding board member, and I have a last minute suggestion for you relative to the shoulder season hunt. I provided a list of 13 background items, many of which I think you're familiar with, but being that I've hunted in Montana since 1962, there's some things that historically people may not keep in mind, and that is, number one, the population has doubled since the 90s. Number two, half the elk, which is now about 90,000 elk, reside primarily on private land. The private landowners are feeding them. The private landowners are providing the habitat for them. And the private landowners are not getting rich off of the wildlife or the elk or whatever in Montana. So this is the suggestion I've got for updating the elk shoulder season. Have the elk shoulder season be open from August 15th to February 15th, as in the past, but on a statewide basis on private land up to 2 miles from the private land in areas that are below management objective, allow the landowner to go ahead and directly call people to harvest elk off of their property when they are using their resources.
Good job. On mute. Okay, then you can unmute it there. Oh, cool.
Oh, and the second item, the second deal is where elk are above management objective, is to go ahead in those areas, allow hunting on both public and private property during August 15th to February 15th for antlerless only elk. And I think over the years, I keep hearing about the concerns about landowners getting something for free or getting rewarded and so on. And I'm very disappointed with the people that speak to it that way. And again, I'd like to say there's 80,000 hunters out there that are non-landowners that are unsuccessful every year in harvesting elk. There is a reason for that. And I think FWP needs to be more outspoken in terms of describing it. And I know you have to do it in a, how should I say, public correct way. But the point is, the people who are not successful, there's a variety of reasons for it. And I would strongly suggest that the FWP be more proactive in describing that. And quite frankly, as the committee, it isn't an easy thing to do, but there's shortcomings in the hunting approach that these unsuccessful hunters don't do. And to improve that would improve their success ratio and help get the management objective. If you have any further questions in addition to the background points I have, or to discuss any of them, I'll be on the line. Thank you much.
Thank you, Brian. The next person we have ready for public comment is going to be Ed Deal. Ed, go ahead. You have 3 minutes. Can you unmute yourself again? Ed. Oh.
Okay. Can you hear me there?
Yes, we can. You have 3 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for the diligence with which you operated in your efforts on all these issues you brought forward. And just encourage you as you go forward with your recommendations and in a way to follow them all the way through to their conclusion, whatever that might be. I'm the chair of the PLPW Council, and we've been listening, and we've addressed some of these issues, but you've brought up a lot of good commentary, and I know you all know that from what you've encountered. And these are all good things to bring forward to have in the discussion and inform people. One of the areas that I think I'm going to be watching and we're working on is combining our efforts to bring the hunter relationship, both in education and communication, into the forefront to be successful on moving us forward in this big critical area of hunting and wildlife management in Montana. So again, I just encourage you there. I really appreciate all of your dedication and the work you've done, and look forward to it coming forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ed. The next person we have ready is going to be Daryl. Daryl, if you could please state your last name after you unmute yourself.
Hello, my name is Daryl Brabick. I'm a member of the Colstrip Sportsman's Club and have been trying to follow your group. I would just like to encourage it to be made easy for us to download and present your recommendations for meetings with our group. We would like to actively review all the proposals that you have moved forward. And to do so, we would like a nice format to get those downloaded and available for presentation at our meeting. And we can do it electronically and make a presentation, but that's at the point we'd like to do. We'd like to thank you for your time and effort working on these projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. Next we have Dan Odin. Can you unmute yourself, Dan? Perfect. Go ahead. You have 3 minutes. I'm not sure we can hear you, Dan. Okay, we will come back to Dan. Next, we have Scott Johnson.
Hi, can you hear me?
You sure can. Go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Scott Johnson. I am a consulting project manager and lifelong hunter. I also have degrees in wildlife management. I was interested in what you're doing. I'd like to thank you for your work, but I really don't know what you've been doing. I did try to get minutes of your meeting and was told you don't have minutes, that I need to watch the recording, which effectively takes me out of the pool, as I don't have, I looked at the last meeting, it was over 6 hours. I can't dedicate that kind of time. And I think that it's probably representative in your public comments that mostly you get public comments from organizations that have a vested interest. And I think that's fine, but I think this process somewhat eliminates the actual public involvement in this process, which I think was maybe some of the intention of having a committee. That said, I wish you would consider publishing minutes or a summary, or I did see an agenda today that wasn't available online, and or some other way that people can get up to speed with the work you're doing without dedicating 40 hours of watching YouTube meetings. That said, I don't know, and I apologize in advance if my comments aren't relative to what you're working on. My perception as a hunter and a citizen is that our culture in Montana over the last 30 years has changed dramatically. The access to elk and wildlife in general has changed dramatically because of changing cultures and access to private lands. We, as I'm certain you're aware, we have a large problem with elk knowing land boundaries and being able to access private land, safe zones during hunting season, whether it's in August or February or in November, that directly impact the ability to harvest in those areas, especially where we are overpopulating, which obviously causes other problems and long-term stability of the populations. FWP has had great success with buck management. I've used it myself. I'm a big fan, and I don't know how we go about getting additional access to private landowners who have an aversion to managing the populations through hunting methods. I'm also concerned with the politicalization of our hunting rights and opportunities in Montana based on economics and other factors that aren't really related to the game management. I wish game managers had authority to actually manage the wildlife, and that this wasn't politicized and managed through a process that doesn't consider the biology as a primary driver of the decisions. I'm heard rumors that there's some discussion about changing the regulations to an either or archery or rifle. I'm very concerned with that, especially in light of we're trying to manage populations and to restrict active hunters when the hunter population is actually decreasing. I don't know where that's going and if that's in consideration, but I would recommend against it.
Thank you, Scott. That is your time.
Thank you.
And we will go back to Dan Bowden. Dan, can you go ahead and unmute yourself?
Hello.
Hello, you have 3 minutes.
All right, one second.
You're gonna have to turn off your speaker, Dan, I think. We're hearing a major echo.
All right, I had to call in on my phone and I was trying to shut off my computer. Can you guys hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah? I'm sorry, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
You have 3 minutes.
Right. Thank you. So my name is Dan Bowden. I am just a private individual. I live in Lolo, Montana, and I've been doing my best, as one of the previous gentlemen said, to weed through the videos and check out the content. I appreciate everybody's efforts. I just want to say that it seems like you guys have done your best job to try and communicate and come up with some ideas. My main point in calling is just to reference 2 specific things that have been talked about. I grew up in Sanders County and have archery hunted and rifle hunted there most of my life, and would definitely agree with the sentiment that predation has caused I don't know, I can't support that it's a decrease in numbers, but I can support it's a decrease in the inability to harvest animals because they don't seem to talk for about the last 8 years. So I actually don't hunt up there anymore since the wolves have moved in. I now hunt down the Bitterroot in 270, which is a permit area. You have to put in for it, but you get it. And I would say that in that area, the increase in out-of-state hunters has caused a dramatic decrease in the ability to harvest game down there. Now, I've been fortunate enough to harvest a lot of animals down there. But so I guess that's a question I have, because I've done my best to see everything you guys have gone through. And, you know, I noticed the choose your weapon, choose your season idea, but I didn't see anything on whether or not we decreased the number of out-of-state hunters. I lived in Montana since I was 3 years old, hunted here my whole life. And the only thing that I've noticed out in the woods is that there's more people from out of state. And last year, everybody I've talked to, that's one of the biggest things that we're seeing in terms of opportunity. There's just so many people that are coming in, especially the area that I hunt, because I think people think it's a draw area, even though everybody gets it if you put in for it. They think it's a good place to go. So I don't know if that's other places. So I did want to say that the pick your weapon, pick your season idea, I just wanted to get on the record for that starting now, that to me is not a way that we're going to manage elk and allow elk to come back onto public land. Archery season really hasn't, even though there is pressure, it hasn't forced the animals, especially in 270, to move on to public or private land. It's the first weekend of rifle that they all leave public land and they go to the private land. So decreasing, number one, the archery season isn't going to do anything for that, in my opinion. And on the second side of that last weekend where you're talking about getting rid of that archery season is not going to really have an impact, because there aren't that many people in the woods then anyways. And so, I mean, I'm out there every year that time. I hunt that last weekend, that whole last, you know, I'm a teacher, so I can only hunt weekends. But that's when I'm out there and I do not see a lot of people. So I appreciate you guys trying to do that, but I think that should be put on the end or the last of your recommendations. I know you guys are going to do that today. The final thing I would say, I love archery hunting. It's my passion. But as you guys had talked about, I can kill a bull elk with my rifle almost every single year. And I would have to give up archery hunting if I had to choose my weapon because I want meat in my freezer. And so that would be really unfortunate to lose the opportunity to be able to chase elk with my bow because I would have to choose a rifle to get meat in the freezer. So thank you for your efforts. And I just wanted to get that on the record.
Thank you, Dan. And I think that's everybody for our public comment period.
Thank you, Jasmine. Does anybody have any questions for any of the public commenters? Okay. So just for those on the phone or on Zoom for the public commenters, we will be posting all the recommendations on our website shortly, and I'll go over the next steps at the end of this meeting, but we'll be posting them on the website soon for all the public to comment on, and I'll go over that at the end.
Thanks, Deb. Okay, so next, are you guys ready to jump into the recommendation, manage elk where they are not? Are we ready to get started in that? Okay. Otherwise, we can take a break, but I'm fairly confident that you guys, this is the version that I have as of thus far. Is this correct, Ian, the correct version? Whoops, that's a little bit.
That looks like it was that on the latest email that I just sent out.
Yes,
Okay,
and
yeah,
I can
just-
scroll down really quickly. I just want to make sure that if it changes, tweaks, adjustments, or something, that I have the latest version. So I'll just scroll real quick. And this will give everybody a little bit of context of where we are. You're not going to be able to read it this quickly, but I think that there was one other change. This was the change that you added in the last
Yeah,
email.
I added that one recently, so.
Okay. So this is that recommendation. We sent it to the sounding board, received comment and feedback. I believe all of you should have access to it via email. So what we can do is, Ian, if you want to get us kicked off, we can do what we did for the other ones. We have 30 minutes. We have a little bit more flex time with our agenda today. So if we go over that, I don't think that we need to press too hardly, but we can try to stay as closely as we can within 30 minutes. And then adjust accordingly. So maybe start by giving us a little bit of background on what you want us to know about this one, and then we can roll through either the justification or the description in particular.
Yeah, I guess I think at this point, I think everybody's probably read this, gone through the recommendation. I think probably just stick to some of the changes that I made. There was I received a couple comments, or well, it was one in particular that I guess that was the reason for this first change here. There was a little bit of just confusion and kind of, I mean, I'm throwing around a lot of numbers and stats and other things. I kind of dorked out on this a little bit, and you know, I just wanted to basically throw out there that you know, recently, in the last little bit, I appreciate it, Deb, and you know, everybody else at FWP. There's been some recent documents that I was given that gave a little bit more background on game populations and such, but just wanted to kind of throw out there that, hey, my point in this is not to argue, you know, that whether it was, you know, 500 elk or 600 or you know, predator numbers or this or that I want to start a conversation that I feel like is not being had in Northwest Montana. I kind of feel like you know, we put a lot of effort and focus into elk and other parts of the state, and you know, yeah, there's probably, you know, a lot of people that are leaving and causing the pressure in those elk to leave public ground in other parts of the state because, yeah, we're not staying home to hunt. So I put a disclaimer in there, and I put my name in there. I guess I don't know if the what the group's take on that would be, but like, you know, I didn't want anybody to feel like they you know, because this is kind of my baby, and you know, put a lot of things in there that I didn't want to feel like somebody was, they might support it, but didn't want to get lumped into,
Deb's on, I'm gonna jump in real quick, Ian, and say, as we go through this, we're probably gonna make changes to this. So, and this is a group effort. So we're probably gonna have to acknowledge that this is a group recommendation, even though you started it. I know several folks started the recommendations, but it should be a representation of the group, not just a individual. So that's my take, and Deb's on camera, so I would like to turn it over to her. I think she has something to say as well.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, in your charter, and Scott Van Dyken has brought this up before, everybody's going to have to own this if this goes forward. It's not a one-person deal. It's a work group deal, and that's why we had you guys define consensus as being 9 people voting on this. So it's just not a one-person deal. So that, I think I would recommend removing that too.
okay. Well, I don't know if we want to just run through and just kind of run down the line and probably just get into.
Let's take that one piece first and then run through. Are you guys comfortable with this sentence here with this? If we edit this, if we just take that out or edit, what do you guys feel for that? As this is a group effort. Yes, Druska.
I agree that as with all of the recommendations, we all have ownership. And so I think that, popular or not, good or bad, whatever anybody thinks of recommendations, we as a group move them forward. And so I don't think Ian should take any undue pressure for this particular recommendation and its pluses and minuses. Everybody's got them in the recommendations that have gone forward. And as Scott Van Dyken has said, we own it.
So you guys comfortable if I take this out? Okay, Heath nodding his head. Okay. Got a couple head nods. Okay. Well, we can come back to the intent too, just making sure that we cover that one portion. And then Ian, you were saying that there was something else that you wanted to cover as well? No.
I'm drawing a blank.
Okay. Do you guys want to cover the justification first, or do you want to jump into the description and cover that content first? So justification is the reason, sort of what's going on here. Then the description is kind of the actions that this recommendation is taking forward.
I think we go to the description. I think we're aware of the justification at this point.
Okay. Thank you, Heath. Okay, so let's take them one at a time. How about that? How are we on the first one? The department must conduct elk counts. Da, 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 da. I'm sure we're all aware of this. Druska.
Do we get to use a word as strong as must? Just thrown out for a question. Or if it's a recommendation, should we say the department should? Or I don't know, must is pretty strong. And I don't know if that is power we don't have.
I kind of like the demand. If it's truly an issue, I think we roll with it. But that's just me though.
That's fine.
Chuck, you're on mute.
Yeah. Well, we really don't have any power anyway. So it's a recommendation, and I guess that makes us a statement that we feel pretty strongly that it must make those counts. So I'd stay with must.
I think it's a good point to point out the recommendation too. It's a recommendation overall, but the verbiage within it may or may, depending on if the recommendation is implemented or not, is up to FWP. So leaving it with must. Anything else for this top one? We're comfortable with it. How about number 2?
I mean, there's just some housekeeping stuff. That first one, just before 2019, that should be from, not form. Go up to that first one. Yeah. Up. Right. Just here, right? Or at least from. No, up. There you
That
go.
one?
Yep. That
Thank
should
you.
be from 19. And then in the next one down, the ELK objective for all 17 districts in the region 1 you should get rid of the.
Perfect. Thank you. For the intent, are we comfortable with the intent of these two items here? What it's trying to achieve?
Yeah.
Okay. I also want to make sure that we're hitting the intent, what we're trying to achieve, not just word something, though I do appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'm just gonna slowly go till you guys tell me otherwise. The third one, the reestablish here.
I think that's a waste of resources. We already know there's not killing anything up there. So why would we put people where we already know what the answer is? To validate that I think it's a waste of resources. And Fishing and Wildlife and Parks doesn't have that many resources as it sets. So if you're going to establish a check station, you got to make sure you're actually doing something. I'd take that out.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with Scott. I think that the data that Ian, I think, is trying to get there could probably be captured just from like the phone survey or a mandatory survey.
Okay. So we're comfortable with that. Okay, head nods. Okay, Ian.
Yeah, no, I guess I'm fine with that. I mean, that was an intent-based thing because I feel like, I mean, with that, when that game check was removed, now it's kind of an out of sight, out of mind thing. And I feel like, instead of reporting, hey, there's like, 6 elk a year that get checked out of here when there used to be, hundreds. I'm fine with it. I would agree that it's a waste of resources, but just, I put it in there so it, it's just to highlight that, hey, we do have an issue. But anyway, I'm fine with taking it out of there.
Okay. So we'll keep it out. How about this one? The responsibilities within the Wildlife Division fall into the 4 major themes. What do y'all think of that one?
Does Fish, Wildlife and Parks have the ability to go ahead and do habitat development on USFS property? I wouldn't think they would. I could see the state spending money on state-owned land and grants to landowners to try to increase habitat if they want to do that or something like that. But I don't know if the state government has authority to go onto Forest Service land and do habitat enhancement. I don't know if that's a good spending of our taxpayers' dollars.
Thanks, Scott. Deb came on camera.
Yeah, we generally, we do cooperate on projects with our federal partners and our state partners, but generally, no, we do not. It's federal dollars that's spent on habitat improvements, generally on federal land.
Okay, Ian.
Yeah, there's pretty strong history of like some of the wildlife relocations that were taking place. So how does that? There seems to be a disconnect there. A lot of those relocations are done on federal land. So how can that happen and not?
We're stewards of the wildlife, not of the land. The federal government is, on Forest Service land, that's theirs. And obviously we're not going to relocate critters to areas that don't have suitable habitat. But we're stewards of the wildlife resource, not the habitat on federal land.
Thanks, Deb. Druska?
So if you partner with U.S. Forest Service on projects, if that's occurred before, would this bullet be better served saying we encourage or would like to see more cooperation between FWP and U.S. Forest Service on potential habitat improvements or something?
Yeah, we do a lot of consulting work and we work very closely with not fish and wildlife, Forest Service biologists and foresters on lots of things. It's just that we don't spend the money there generally. That's something that they do, but we do collaborate often on different projects. And Ian just pointed out, moving animals around. It's just something that's not commonly done, and I don't know that that it would increase with this recommendation.
Thanks, Deb. So hearing a little bit of what Driscoll was saying, that kind of makes me think of the other recommendation that we came up with too, with FWP and collaboration coordination with Forest Service, I believe it was. So maybe there's a relationship with those. That's something that just pointed out. Stephanie.
Could we at least keep the sentence like habitat enhancement projects must be a priority of the district to restore population? It's that last sentence. Sorry, I guess I'm pointing at the screen. Like you can see where I'm pointing. Just that last sentence, at least.
Yeah.
And keep that. Keep that sentence. So it's at least known that that is a key part of improving.
How do folks feel about that? Got head nods. Okay. Anything else with this sentence? Yes, Chuck.
Okay, so should that be, should district be department? I'm confused what the district is.
I think you're right there. Yeah.
Okay, that's all I had. I agree.
Thanks, Chuck. Okay, so how about this next one here? Chuck. And you're on mute.
I think I suggested to Ian some time ago to put commission in there. And I don't know if that is quite the right verbiage. They must take the predator issue seriously. I don't know that they don't take it seriously, but they're not doing what they could do. I don't have any verbiage for that. If somebody has some verbiage to change out a little, I'd be fine. But if we leave it that way, I'm fine with it too. I just don't know if that's quite the right verbiage, but I didn't come up with anything any better. So
okay.
No.
So does anybody else have any verbiage that we could put in here that'd be more clear to make this a little bit clearer?
I'm just asking a question for clarification, I guess. I should probably start raising my hand down there. There you go.
No, you're good.
But Chuck, you say they're not doing what they could be doing. Like, do they really limit like wolf hunting in there? Ian, I guess.
Well, I don't know that they really limit things, but I mean, we had some large scale legislative changes that, I hit on later that, snaring and some other stuff, and that was removed because there was like lynx protection zones and some other stuff. So I guess not to get too far ahead of myself, but kind of my big vision is like, I don't like the number of predators, in my opinion, in the Bob Marshall is not the issue. It's the fact that we have, a lack of, or our ungulate populations are suffering. So we could, in my vision, we could have equal number of predators or maybe even more, as long as we had, you know, our ungulate populations restored. So I think there's an unhealthy balance between our predators and prey. And, you know, I have some other stuff further down, but, you know, if the department comes up with, hey, here's what the sustainable ratio is, and, you know, our predator populations expand beyond that, that's where, I mean, it's not going to be, you know, it's going to be a hot button item, but, you know, aerial take or other stuff, if the hunter and sportsmen, trappers, etc., can't get things under control, then I think that's where I'm saying the department maybe need to take some other steps to ensure that that's maintained, because I guess I've seen it where, you know, predator populations continue to grow and grow and grow, and then bang, collapses your ungulate population, and now you can't, even if we wanted to have prolific ungulate populations and grow our predator populations, you can't do it given the current dynamics. But anyway, so I think there's other things that they could be doing. There's other tools. We have a lot of tools. It's just they're not popular.
So maybe we need to tweak the verbiage here a little bit. Deb, you went on camera. Did you have something you wanted to add to Scott for Scott?
No, I was turning my camera on just in case I got questions, but I will say that, you know, we have implemented all the increased predation, or we have increased our use of new and additional predation tools that the legislature passed last session. Like Ian said, there are lynx protection zones, and that's really the only thing that we didn't implement. And still yet the wolf harvest did not go up. It's actually lower than it has been in the last 4 years, even though we implemented all these additional tools that you could use to harvest wolves. So, I mean, the bottom line is it's just darn hard to trap and hunt a wolf. And that's why we poisoned them years ago, because that was easy. So, you know, I'm not saying to change this. I'm just saying that, you know, I don't know what else we can do. And if you guys have specific ideas about what we can do, that's what we need to hear instead of just assess it. Like I said, the legislature told us very specifically what to do, and we're still not increasing wolf harvest.
So we've got a couple hands up, Chuck, Stephanie, and then Scott. I think Scott might have a follow-up question, but Chuck, yeah.
So the problem isn't just wolves. A big part of the problem is black bears, grizzly bears, and mountain lions. And I'm not an expert on all of those, but I know that we are very conservative on our lion take, and lions, they're a big part of the problem. And the bears absolutely wipe out game. Now, I understand that you've got some restrictions with the grizzly bears. That's tough, but the black bears you don't, and we've got to get after those two species as well. So the focus always goes back to the wolves, but we've got, I'm more familiar with the lion part, and we could do a lot better on the lion hunting than what we're doing, in my opinion anyway.
So maybe we need to tweak something within here with specific focus, not just on wolves, but lions as well. So let's hear from Stephanie and then Scott and see how we can tweak and adjust this to have practical actions to it. Stephanie?
I think exploring aerial take would be a good thing for the department to do. I know that it's federally wrong, but you know, smoking marijuana federally is illegal too. So, you know, it might be something we can consider. And then also, I think maybe one tool that was added this year is the hound hunting with bears, and maybe exploring expansion of that in that region 1 and 2 area. I think that would be something for the department to explore. I don't know much about it, but I could see it as an important tool.
Can you repeat that?
Kimberly, I think I have that further on down along with the bear or the black bear stuff.
Okay.
Perfect. Thanks, Ian.
Okay,
And we did explore that, and basically the commission and the department came to that we just can't use hounds in grizzly country right now.
Let's get Scott, Heath, and Ian, and then hopefully in these conversations we can tweak this to be something that's those practical actions, maybe beyond assessing. Scott.
I totally agree with Stephanie and Chuck on that it needs to be broad because lions and bears are huge in that. I just don't know if we don't want to make it, oops, let me put my phone on silent. Sorry about that. If we want to maybe lighten it up on the department and Fish, Wildlife and Parks Commission must take their predation issue seriously. I think they do. I don't know how they count cats, but anything with fangs, teeth, or claws needs to be killed, in my opinion. But I think you need to, I just don't think we want to be confrontational in the thing we send. I think it should be lightened up because I think they do take it seriously.
Okay.
But I just don't think we should be confrontational because as soon as we're confrontational, they might not take us seriously as a group. We want to be professional in the way we do it. So, but I agree with everybody else that we need to be whole, not just on wolves, but on bears and lions because they're downright killers.
Okay, so remove that first sentence. Thinking about how we can make this something that's easy to understand with practical actions that FWP will consider. Okay.
Kimberly, sorry to interrupt. I know I'm going out of turn. I think you could keep that sentence and just put the department and the FWP commission must continue to take predation issues seriously. I know that they do take it seriously, but at least otherwise I think you're losing kind of the whole point of that bullet point if you take that sentence out.
Let me.
Yeah, I like that, Stephanie.
Okay, perfect. I just want to check with Scott. Okay, perfect. So we'll change it to that. Then let's get Heath, Ian, and Stephanie. Heath.
No, I'm good. Scott basically said everything I was gonna say.
Very efficient. Thank you, Scott. Ian, and then Stephanie.
That last sentence there, this can only be explained by predation. You can probably delete that. It's more subjective. There's a lot of passion in this one that probably comes across that's maybe not beneficial. I don't know. It might be worth scrolling down quick to that bullet point that I added most recently, and where I'm getting, maybe that is kind of what I'm really trying to get at with this, is that, so we have, that the hunting side of the house is saying we need more elk. The non-consumptive side of the house is saying we need more predators. Well, how do we get there? How do we make everybody happy? Well, I think both sides of the house can agree on habitat enhancement, and I think that's something that we need to take a little bit more seriously in the Northwest. But there's also some, I don't know, I've been kind of confused trying to track down numbers of what are our actual predator populations and whatnot. There's I had a good conversation with one of the biologists up here, and filled me in on a lot, but we've got roughly 1,000 grizzly bears in the greater, or the northern continental divide population. We've got 1,200 mountain lions. We've got 510 wolves. That doesn't include our black bear population. We have an estimate of like 2,700 large carnivores plus predators, plus black bears. And then it's not apples to apples, but our latest elk surveys, the data available online, there was 2,650 elk. Now that's the ones that they just physically counted, so it's higher than that. But what I'm kind of trying to point out is that there's a ratio that's out of balance, and if a sustainable ratio is established for the Northwest, then I think we can, just take out those peaks and valleys in that predator prey model, and we can have, more elk, more deer, more whatever, and foreseeably even more predators than we currently have. But when the large swings are allowed to happen, we can't put our thumb on them, then I guess that's ultimately that's what I'm trying to get across with this. So I don't know if anybody has any additional comments, or maybe that comes across, but it's kind of tough because we have all these different boundaries. Each species has a different boundary, and it's hard to overlay things, and it's hard to get, you know, talking apples to apples numbers. And it might be better sell to the, you know, non-consumptive public that, hey, we got to make a couple you know, hard choices and, you know, reduce our predator populations temporarily to allow everything to rebound, and then we can you know, move forward and get things back in line. But I guess I'll turn it back over to the group. That's kind of my vision a little bit.
So we've been going for about 30 minutes. So I wanted to see if we can shorten and see if I've captured what you're saying here, Ian, and then I'll turn it to you, Juska. Are we pretty much saying all of these here are pretty much saying that FWP should consider developing a predator ratio and consider implementing that? Is that kind of, are we shortening?
I don't, well, yeah, like that one right there, that in March of 2022, FWP removed 3 mountain lions one, or no, sorry, the one below it.
This one? Similar to wolf?
Yeah. I mean, I think that right there, those protections are in there for a reason. And if we get rid of those protections, like the grizzly bear part of it, I'm not saying a houndsman can't identify a grizzly track. I'm saying that you can't stop a dog when he's on a track. And so, you know, those are there for a reason. And I think that proposal to get rid of the bear or the grizzly protection zones and that put us farther from our goal than they do enhance it. I think we end up with more wildlife conflict and more conflict with the non-consumptive users.
So you're saying get rid of this one in particular?
That's what I'd say. I know that houndsmen are good and I know that they're effective. I also don't believe that you are going to stop a dog from chasing a grizzly bear.
Okay, thank you. Let's get Juska. She's been waiting. Yeah.
So this comment isn't necessarily to a specific bullet point, but in the wolf season that we had around the park, and especially in like the Gardner area and all, that had it's swung one way or the other, depending on who is politically in office. So, you know, some quotas were put in place. They were pretty low quotas. And so, you know, if you hit it, then all hunting stopped. And then they took all the quotas away. And, you know, it seemed to people, the perception out there was then it was a free for all. So my point here is that we have to be really careful, and FWP does too, on how they handle the predator population concerning wolves and grizzly bears, because if the perception is out there that we've declared war on them, it's not going to affect grizzly bears. They just won't delist them. But it would be a major setback in this state if they relisted the wolf. And so we walk a fine line between predator control and not appearing like we're taking all the wolves off the landscape. And so it's just a cautionary note that while I know the wolves are a problem, as are grizzly bears, as are lions, I think we have to really rely on FWP to know what that amount is going to be. And if we try and dictate anything, or if the recommendation comes off too strong, we could be shooting ourselves in the foot.
So see, he's given you a thumbs up and lots of nods. So I think he's in agreement on that. So let's make that happen in our recommendation.
She said everything that I wanted to say. She just said it a lot better.
Well, thank you, Juska. Okay, let's get Stephanie, and then let's see if we can make that happen. Let's see how we can incorporate that into the recommendation.
I was just gonna say, we should just go through these bullet by bullet and just clean them up and summarize them. because I'm looking, there's a lot of good stuff in here, and I think it's just really lengthy, and there's a lot of data in here as well. So I think if we can just go through and kind of, you know, like there's, you know, stuff in here about trapping quotas and lion quotas and things like that. And so if we could just at least get some highlights in here and, you know, preserve the integrity of this recommendation. Because I think it's a really good one, and I think it's well liked by the public up in the northern regions. So
Perfect.
to kind of start working through it.
Yeah, so we will stop bouncing around. We will go back to the process of going bullet by bullet, and this is the last one that we ended on. Do we need this context here, or do we just want that sentence there? What do you guys want?
I think we can get by with just the sentence.
You guys comfortable with it?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
I think we need to be careful on how much of a story, like if we tell this great big 10-page story, I mean, it's a good read, but are they going to pay attention to all 10 pages? I think if we get some succinct type bullet points, that's what we would like.
Okay, let's aim for that and making sure that we dance that fine line of predator control. Okay, so the next bullet. Where are you guys on that?
I think it's kind of the same thing. I think you could get rid of like in the Bob Marshall Elk Management Unit down for quite a ways, just the stats. That seems to me like it should be more in the justification as opposed to the description.
Okay.
And maybe just put something in there that the Fish, Wildlife, and Parks needs to reassess the quotas on their predator population that they can manage, which would exclude grizzly bears, but reassess the quotas on lions, and you know, I don't know, do they have a black bear quota up there? I doubt it. That's not my country I hunt in, but
Fish and Wildlife, who else did you mention, Scott, to reassess?
just needs to reassess the quotas on the predator populations they're authorized to manage, which is basically wolves, lions, and black bears.
Yeah. I see Stephanie and Matt. Oh, maybe that was a residual hand. Matt.
Would it be possible to include like a supplemental, like all this information is so good and gives so much context that we're reducing it down to, I mean, some very simplistic stuff that they're just going to read and be like, yeah, we need to, you know, but there is a lot of information here that shouldn't just be thrown away, in my opinion. Could we include a supplemental fact sheet with this proposal?
I don't see why you'd be prohibited from doing that. I think that you could definitely include a supplemental. I would try to keep the recommendation to the actions that you want FWP to do, so they can look at it, see it, and go from there. And then I don't see anything wrong with having a supplemental document. But
no, I mean, I completely agree. Like when I look at this, it's overwhelming and it's hard to read through the whole thing. But if we could just really narrow it down to some bullet points and then have these referenced on a separate supplemental sheet, I think would be useful.
I 100% agree. That I think that would be super, super beneficial.
Okay. Yeah. Ian? Stephanie, was that the only thing that you wanted? Is that what you had to plan for? Okay. And then Ian?
Yeah, I guess I'm not opposed to that. I mean, I appreciate Matt's comment there. I mean, that the biggest issue I feel like is that people don't know that there is an issue in the Northwest. That's why I went crazy and threw all this stuff out there, because it's more of an education campaign to get other sportsmen to say, hey, you know, you guys are wanting us to comment on 454 permits and other stuff and this and that. You know, we help you out there, and then you guys help us out on other stuff. They don't even know. Most people don't even know that we, you know, what we had at one time in the Northwest and what it is right now. So that's given time constraints, that might be a little bit difficult to do, but I'm not opposed to that. I just the supplemental stuff is to tell the story, to let people know where we're at that aren't familiar with it up here, because it is a very complicated thing, and it's hard to describe it unless you went out and you saw it firsthand. You saw how good the elk hunting and deer hunting and everything else was. It's pretty tough to envision, the change. So anyway, I guess we'll see where it
Okay.
goes.
Thanks, Ian. Let's get Heath, and then we'll tackle the next bullet. Yep.
Even if we just took the stuff we strike through and added it to the justification, if we had to, I mean, it's telling the whole story. Even if, I mean, the justification is going to be 17 pages, but that's basically what we're asking for, is to keep all that information, just to put it in, the right spot.
So maybe let's go through this, see what the actual recommendation looks like, and maybe go from there. Otherwise, you guys are going to have to read all of the verbiage too and make sure that it's appropriate for the justification, making sure that you hit whatever you need to hit for the justification. So let's make sure that we just get the recommendation first, and then we'll tackle the supplemental document. Let's work on this right here, the next bullet, in 2021.
Again, I just don't think we want to. I think we're setting ourselves up for failure by mandating that we get rid of links protection zones, any kind of grizzly protection zones, any of that stuff. I mean, we want to get those eventually delisted and hopefully be able to manage them. And I think all we're doing there is flirting with the fact that we're acting like we can manage them when currently, or we aren't going to affect them, I guess, when we probably are, or those wouldn't be in place.
I agree.
So are we saying delete this?
Well, not delete, but it goes in the supplemental.
Yes, I'll put it as, well, I'm going to delete it for now, and then we'll
Okay.
figure out where it goes, how it goes, all that fun stuff.
Because that could be your justification for aerial, like, hey, you can't snare, you can't do all these other things. There's another option out there, shoot them from a helicopter.
Okay, Stephanie and then Matt.
Could you keep the last sentence though? Hunting of wolves year round should be considered for areas where the predator to ungulate ratio. I don't think that has anything to do with the link zone, so you could keep that in.
Okay. Matt?
Yeah, that was my comment as well. So
You guys are reading each other's minds today. Okay.
I'd get rid of additionally, and just the bullet is hunting of wolves year round should be considered.
Perfect. Okay. Next we have this. Addition to open roads to motorized travel for trappers on road segments. Matt?
I kind of like this one the way it is.
Folks are good with this one? Okay. Got head nods? Okay. What about the trappers?
I like this one as well, especially in the areas Ian's talking. I mean, winter road travel is like the only option possibly for some of those wolves.
What about, I'm just going to keep on going until you guys stop then. Or somebody says something different.
I don't know that I could go with 7 days, man.
No, me neither.
I think if you're going to trap, you better be on your trap and not leave something in there.
So delete this one or change the days?
I think that also plays into what Drewska said. It's a bad look for trappers if we're leaving things there.
Yeah.
They're trying to say they're being humane, and that's not humane.
Okay.
I get that, but the perception is if you leave it there, then you're really a bad guy, and we don't want that.
Okay. And Stephanie?
I was just going to ask if anybody on here is an active trapper that thinks that an extension would be valid. Again, when I heard 7 days, I was not okay with this particular point, just because 7 days is unethical in my opinion.
I trap, and I would never, ever do that.
Scott, do you go as much as every day, or what's
I
your
go
usual?
every other day, so it'd be 48.
Yeah, okay.
Otherwise, you're so active on your sets that you're gonna keep
You're
this
messing them up.
night.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would 3 days be out of the question? Or, I mean, is that, I just don't know enough about trapping.
I'd rather stick with 48 hours.
And then if you're making it where they can just zip down the road and check it from the road on their sled or whatever, I think that would help, because the quicker you can do it, as long as you're not hiking 150 yards off to every single set to check it, that's where it takes time.
Okay. Chuck?
Well, trapping is such a lightning rod anyway, that I think we should be careful here and not fire up the anti-trapping bunch and propose something that could jeopardize trapping at all. So I think we have to stay with the 48 hours and not, that's not going to be a big difference maker anyway, in my opinion.
Thanks, Chuck. Okay, so we'll take that out. What about the next bullet? FWP should consider hiring a trapper. You good with that? Stephanie's good. Druska, you look like you. And Scott has some.
I don't know.
Okay. Okay. Chuck, do you still have your hand up from previously, or? We've got. You're on mute. Yeah. You're still on mute, Chuck. Chuck, you're on mute.
I don't know if my hand's up or down or if I'm on mute or whatever. But,
Your hand's up.
I'm just thinking, Ian, maybe you can speak to this, but one trapper in the Bob Marshall, boy, I've been in there a little bit and there's a lot of country in there. So I don't know if you get much bang for your buck on that deal. I would question that one.
Yeah, there used to be pretty extensive government trappers in that area, kind of patrol some of the areas. I don't know. I've got a buddy that bought a dog sled team and he's running some of these closed roads right now. If he could just stay in some of the cabins that are back there, he would do it himself. But
Thanks,
you know, I don't know. It's a kind of a hot spot back in there. There's no management that takes place. There used to be pretty extensive management, but we used to be a lot tougher than we are now. So I won't die on that one. But
okay, thank you, Ian. Let's get Scott. He's had his hand up for a bit.
Does the government trapper still run in the Bob Marshall? I guess Deb, would she know?
no, they haven't for years.
Yeah,
Oh,
they
really?
haven't. Mm-mm.
Okay.
Would you achieve the same thing with the aerial harvest if you could do that in the Bob Marshall and not worry about trapping?
Probably.
Because people aren't going to like trapping in the Bob.
So maybe just get rid of it and then go with the second bullet.
And, yeah, and highlight. I mean, that tool is.
I'm not sure if you could land in the Bob though.
That's the thing with aerial harvest, you can't land, so that would be, a waste of game too. So you would have to be able to retrieve it.
Oh, okay, got it.
So what do you guys want to do for this?
Well,
do you want this one? So do that, and then do you want me to change everything on you guys?
I think we leave aerial because it doesn't say the Bob necessarily. It just indicating that using aerial is good.
Okay, we're comfortable with that. Okay. I'm gonna move forward. Okay. What about the next one? In March of 2022.
I think that's supplemental.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Okay. Nobody's disagreeing. How about this one? Extend black bear season. Got head nods on that one. Okay. Yeah, Druska.
So I have a soft spot for black bears. So I've always understood that wolves, mountain lions, and grizzly bears are the elk problem, or the problem for elk, not necessarily black bears. But then I heard Chuck talk about black bears. So somebody should set me straight on, are they really that big of a threat?
Chuck's about to. Yep. Chuck. He was shaking his head. He's ready.
Yeah, black bears are hell on elk calves. They sniff them out and devour them. Now, if you're over objective, that's probably not a bad thing, but we're talking about an area where we're really under objective, and black bears are a big problem. So that's sound. I like that recommendation, and I think we should stay with it.
Okay.
And I'll just add that, black bears in several areas, and there's been an extensive study on the elk management or elk wildlife area outside of Jackson Hole, that the number one cause of calf deaths were caused by black bears.
Okay.
And the June 15th is a pretty common close date for a lot of southern black bear districts in the state. So it's not going beyond anything that close date is established in other areas in the state.
So we'll keep that bullet. Stephanie, you have your hand up. Stephanie does not.
Somebody needs to add Heath back in. He's in attendees.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, next bullet. Relocations of elk. I know that there's been some conversation and discussion on this one in particular. I'm sure you guys saw Deb's email, all that fun stuff. Drewska.
So I have problems with this one because of disease and not, I mean, I know I talk about brucellosis all the time, but there's a lot of stuff that I'll get, like TB and, now chronic wasting. And I don't think you always know that the animal you might be taking up there is 100% healthy. Sometimes the tests aren't very good, and sometimes things show up at a later date. I'd rather, work on the habitat and less predators, and hopefully they move back in versus taking something there.
Thanks, Drewska. And we don't have Brent here to share his experience with all those different diseases today as well. Let's get Heath, Chuck, and then Race.
Yeah, I mean, it's being done with with sheep and goats, but that's a different animal. I know Ian thinks we could load a horse trailer up. I don't think that's plausible. I think you'd have to sedate them, obviously, and at that point you're hauling 4 elk a load. I just don't think there's an effective way to do it, and I think it's really just a bad idea as far as the disease goes. And if we have to haul them to an area that's below objective, there's a reason those elk are below objective. I don't know that dumping more in there to watch them die is a great idea either.
Okay, so I'm hearing remove it so far. Thank you for your perspective. Chuck, and then Race.
Yeah, so I pushed back on this one a little bit. I'm probably a little bit too idealistic. I mean, we do all sorts of things with bison, and they carry about every disease known to mankind or to animal kind, and we successfully transplant them. Yeah, probably. I know. I'm not gonna fight this one. I think there's some merit in doing this. But it will never work, and it will never work until we get rid of the reason why we don't have elk in those areas anyway. I get that part. So I pushed back a little. I'm not going to push back anymore on the vote on this. If that's not in the liking of this committee, then that's just fine with me.
Thanks, Chuck. So really thinking about relocating not just disease spread, but also putting them in areas where they can sustain or survive over time. So let's get Race and then Stephanie.
Yeah, I mean, I guess everything's been said by now. I'm slow to comment, but I think we'll have a hard time getting landowner, involvement and excitement in this, knowing, like Drewska said, that there's potential for disease spread, at least for elk. Not saying, I understand what you're saying, Chuck, and I totally agree with that, but I don't think elk are even as easy to handle as the bison. And, I don't know how they would hold them in quarantine without some huge death loss. So I got a pretty good caution flag on this one.
Thanks, Race. Okay, Stephanie?
I was just gonna agree pretty much with everyone. I think that if we could move some elk there, it would be great. But I would hate for this whole proposal to go out with and get thrown out because it has that in it. So that's my take on it. But again, gosh, it would be awesome if we could.
Okay, thanks, Stephanie. Ian? Oh, sorry.
I'd say delete it and move on. I mean, I wanted to say that, hey, just elk are valuable. Just, I don't know, kind of breaks my heart sometimes to kill them when I see that they are valuable, but I'd just delete it and move on.
Okay. So the next one, in light of recent petitions.
I think that one's fun. I don't see anything overly alarming, I guess.
Everybody's good with it? Jeriska?
So I think we're kind of doing a story thing here again. Could we shorten it in a bullet and say, like FWP, well, yeah. Well, just a second. So that sentence below that where it says FWP needs to devote additional resources to create a clear roadmap. Because we shouldn't tell them how to do it. But the expectation is that we want grizzlies delisted and wolves not relisted. So make sure that what you're doing with your stuff doesn't get us there.
So basically that sentence there. What about Chuck? What do you think?
Yeah, I think I was kind of trying to go there too. And that's probably as good as anything. I would, on the last sentence, it sounds a little bit like if you go, it says the most recent elk counts are.
Sorry.
I can't read that fast. 2652. Then it's unreasonable to expect we can increase predator populations with a limited food source like that. I don't think we want to increase. It kind of sends the wrong signal to me if I'm reading that. It sounds like, well, maybe these guys want to increase predator populations. What am I missing here? That seems like it's double talk to me.
If we deleted that, you're comfortable. Go ahead.
I guess, yeah, that's probably, I threw this together a little bit quick. There's a big push. Hey, we're going to put wolves back on the endangered species list, whatever. I guess I'm trying to get out there that, like, if predator populations in the Northwest are on a declining trend, it's not because of trapping. It's not because of these other take methods. It's because they don't have any food left. So that's what I was trying to get across. But maybe that statement right there probably sums it up, and we could probably move on.
Okay. So we'll leave it as this one green statement. FWP needs to devote additional resources to create a clear roadmap towards ensuring wolves are not relisted and grizzlies can be delisted. So scooch down to the next. We've got two more. Okay. What do we think of this one?
you could probably move that up into some of the other stuff or supplemental. I don't know. We could even, if anybody was interested, we could save a version of this deleted thing. If anybody was, have the reduced bullet point recommendation, and, somebody could reference this original version if they wanted to go back to more, but that one's probably not.
Most definitely. We're comfortable with that, folks? Some head nods. What about this one here? This last one.
I think it's good. I like Ian's passion. I think the hardest part with anecdotal evidence is how credible, the public is. Now it's one thing if you got 100 people coming to you saying, "Hey, there's no elk left." I just don't know how you summarize, what is credible. I guess that's my concern. I mean, I don't know how they would implement that. Like, how do you stop discrediting anecdotal evidence? I'm not sure how it's possible.
Okay, so hearing some questions about how this could actually be realistically achieved. Let's hear from Race and Matt.
Yeah, I just want to, follow up with Heath's comments. I agree. I think it sounds great to have lots of help and maybe some additional resources to take counts and different things, but I don't know, we can count cows here on our place and have 3 of us counting and we all get a different number. So I think there's a lot of validity to having a consistent, source doing that, for accuracy purposes.
So here we're kind of leaning towards remove it. So let's hear from Matt. I'm going to temporarily do that.
I think a takeaway from this one is maybe we could look at other options. Like if they're not doing the elk counts themselves, maybe you'd open it up to a third party if there's an elk foundation or local sportsmen's groups that would fund it. Maybe that could be the takeaway from this whole thing is like if they're not going to do it themselves, maybe open up some options.
I like that comment a lot.
Okay. So FWP should consider opening up data collection to other organizations if they're not ready to collect data in that area. Something like that, Matt? Okay. Chuck?
Yeah, you might say instead of organizations, well, I don't know. Organizations is fine. Trouble with organizations is they're political. You might say to a third party.
Do you want to include like reputable or something like that, or just third party? Because you're talking about credibility. I don't know if you need that.
A credible third party.
Credible.
Whatever that means. That's like what is access? Nobody really knows.
Well,
So,
after this meeting, we'll define everything.
my comment prior to that, though, and I like this addendum, is that the thrust of this very good proposal is predator control. That's the big one. So I don't want to. I think it's good not to vary too much from it or offer too much opinion that isn't backed by science. It would probably dilute our credibility a little bit. So I like what we're doing here, and I hope, Ian, you're okay with it. I know you've spent tons of time on this, and I don't want to throw out what you've done, but I think we can put it in a supplement and let somebody else read that as they want.
Okay. Thanks, Chuck. So we've gone through the description. We still need to look a little bit at the justification. It's been about an hour, so I'm going to scroll down to the rest of these here, and then we'll go up to the justification. So do we need anything on people and organizations? FWP, FWP Commission, U.S. Forest Service, hunters, sportsman organizations. Are these the right folks? Keith is nodding. Aaron's nodding. Okay. Timeline, ASAP. We're good with that. Authority, we're good with that. Okay, we'll keep on scrolling. Limitations and unintended consequences. Okay. This one's a little bit longer, so I can give you a second. It's centered around temporarily increasing the take of predators to restore balance. Maybe unpopular. What do folks think of this? Seems like we're really thinking on this one. Something needs a change. We need a break or we're good. I'm not sure how to read this crowd right now.
It's a little lengthy, but it's okay.
Yeah.
Is that what folks think? Matt seems hesitant. You made a
It's just wordy, but I can't think of anything else. I mean, ultimately, the unintended consequences is that there'll be some public outcry about intensive predator management in the short term.
So
But
do we want to just keep it to that, or are you?
yeah, I mean, that would be the only real. It's not an unintended, is it? Or
So I'm thinking
it is a limitation. Yeah, I mean,
all the rest of that is why it's going to be unpopular.
Yeah.
So take it and be like that. We're comfortable with that. Matt's comfortable.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Okay. Speak now or forever hold your peace. I'm scrolling. Okay. Feasibility of implementation. What do y'all think of that one? Does it capture its feasibility, its intent?
I mean, the question is it feasible? Yes. I don't know, again, it's a lot of sentences.
So are you saying Drews could just change it to yes?
Well, that's probably too few words. Let's see.
Okay.
How about just what's in the proposal is nothing new, active forestry and predator management has been implemented for years. And then the rest would be supplemental.
Are we comfortable with that? Folks, okay. Gonna scroll up to the justification unless I hear otherwise. I think we're okay on this one. Okay. Do we need to cover anything in this space here? Do we want to go bullet by bullet? Do you guys need a 5-minute break before we continue? Do you like a 5-minute break?
There's just a lot to read.
Yeah. Yes.
We just get this done before we move on.
Okay. Okay. I just want to take the pulse. Okay. Let's do the first bullet then. What do you guys think of this one?
So again, I mean, and this is really hard for all of us because Ian has put in so much heart and soul on this recommendation, and all of the stuff he's put in it is credible and worthy. So, but the justification for it is that, you know, there's many places in the state of Montana that don't have the elk populations they used to have. So how are we going to fix that? How can we, I mean, so that's why we're justifying the recommendation, is we're trying to put elk back in habitat they used to access.
Okay. So maybe make a sentence or two summarizing that. Is that what you're saying, Druska?
Something like, I don't know, see what Chuck says.
Okay, Chuck.
You know, I really like this one. It's 3 or 4 sentences, but it says a lot in this, but replaces some of the stuff we deleted. I like this sentence. It's and I think when we get down farther, we're going to probably find more detail that we don't have to show because we've got it in a general term up here. That's my opinion.
So let me make sure. Oh, go ahead, Druska. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
So I think, Chuck, you're saying keep this bullet here, but maybe we don't need all of these bullets down here is what we're kind of saying.
Yeah, I don't know if we need them or not, but let's go through them. I think we can. I think there's more detail here than we actually need to print.
Okay, let's tackle bullet 2 then. Do we need bullet 2? Or does that first bullet capture what we need to capture?
Can you just scroll back up so we can read
sure,
that top one again with that? I think the top one actually says that.
So we're leaning towards getting rid of the second one. Scott.
Yeah, I'd have to get Ian's take, but I think most of the points after the first one are just supporting evidence for the first point. And I agree with Chuck that I like that first bullet point.
So I'm getting a lot of head nods on that. So I'm gonna test the water here and say that, and then maybe the same for. Are you comfortable if I do that? Well, I'll give you a second. I'll at least let you read through these. Okay. We're comfortable if I delete that one based off of your comments. I've got some head nods. Okay.
Especially if there's going to be some supplemental information that to go with this, like Matt had said, then all of that can fall into that category.
Okay. Do we think I'll just leave my screen up for a minute with all of this highlighted. Is there anything in this section that we need in the recommendation itself here? Ian.
I guess I'm fine with it if all that goes into, I mean, basically you could just, I mean, have the document itself, and then you could attach kind of all these deleted items at the end. I'd be fine with that if somebody wanted to take things further and look at it. But like I said, public education is the #1 component to this because people just don't even know. So.
Right.
So move into that. So we'll have our recommendation and then a supplemental document of some sort that can provide some context. In addition, we're comfortable with this.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Last section then, the intent. We'll circle back and make sure. So we took that one sentence out at the end, as this is a group effort and we all have to agree to the recommendations themselves. So I just want to circle back on the intent itself.
You can probably delete out the disclaimer if we deleted out all the historical data.
What do folks think of that? We're comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else we need to do for this recommendation?
So I would like the title instead of there at the second to the last word. I would like it to say they are not, because I think it gives it more emphasis instead of just saying where they're not.
Where they are not? Is that what you want to?
Yeah.
And I think under the intent, I think we need to put something in there. Maybe Ian's the wordsmith can put something in there about how we need to increase the population. And because it's not redistributed to hunters, because nobody's hunting there because there's no elk. But increased population, because you don't really want to hunt them very much when there's no elk. You want to let them kind of rebuild their population, something along those lines.
I think that's in the first line with restore historic elk numbers.
I wasn't reading that. I was looking at just the green. Thanks, Scott.
Two Scots help each other out there. That's beautiful. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Are we, I'm going to stop sharing for a sec. Are we ready to proceed forward?
Yes.
Okay. Give me 1 second. I have to pull up this document. Okay. Are we ready to take a vote on this recommendation and determine if we should submit the recommendation? We have to manage elk where they are not to FWP on behalf of the Elk Management Citizen Advisory Group.
Yes.
Thank you. This vote will determine if the recommendation we have to manage elk where they are not should be submitted to FWP on behalf of the Elk Management Citizen Advisory Group. A vote of support indicated by a verbal confirmation is necessary from 9 members for this recommendation to be submitted to FWP. If fewer than 9 members are present at the time of the vote, the members not in attendance will be contacted via email and be provided a deadline to respond to the vote. Members that do not respond to the email for a vote will be considered a no. I do not support submitting this recommendation to FWP. So I will share one more time so that you can see the document itself. Make sure that we are all in agreement on this one here, and then I will call names. So I will slowly scroll through. But not so slowly, I guess. So does this recommendation overall? Ian and then Driska.
Maybe we put it in a supplement, but the hound hunting bullet point that got deleted with basically the grizzlies, or I mean a hound moving off of a blackbird track onto a grizzly. I don't know. I got texted by a probably one of the most prominent hound hunters in the area, and he said that's not at all the case. They use Garmin technology, whatever, to track him, monitor him, and he can call his dogs off at a moment's notice. So I don't know, maybe it gets thrown in the supplement.
So that gets to be a really interesting question. Is the supplemental document just going to be the historical context and information, or the additional components within the recommendation itself? So sort of the hounds, I think there was something about links that we talked about too, like all of the text going in that.
So it's my understanding that everything we are striking out was going into the supplemental.
Okay.
And then I think that it's the manage elk where they are not recommendation along with the supplemental information. I want to link the two together.
Okay.
So that they are a unit when they leave.
Okay. So here's the follow-up question for that, and I want to make specifically clear of it because we did talk about redistributing elk too. So that would go in a supplemental document, and we're comfortable with that.
Okay, I'm confused. What?
So I want to be specific with you in particular, Druska, when we're saying relocation of elk. So like this is going into the supplemental. Relocation of elk from other areas of the state that are over objective to the northwest of Montana need to be analyzed and considered.
Yeah, I think that we want the supplemental to be the historical information and all the justification stuff that Ian provided, not necessarily any of the description ideas that we struck through.
Okay. What are other folks thinking on that? Historical context, not the description that was struck through. The specific actions, like what Ian's talking about with the hounds, what we're talking about here with the disease component, or relocating elk, excuse me.
Okay, so just to be clear, not all strikeout stuff is going in the supplemental.
That's the interpretation that I think Keith is proposing. That was my interpretation, but I need to be very clear.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Stephanie, do you have your hand up?
Yep. Can you go to the part with the black bear hound thing where it's struck out?
Is it this one here, similar to wolves, the black bear regulations in this portion?
I think,
Yeah.
could we edit that to have the department maybe research houndsman, expanding the houndsman bear unit? I agree with Ian. I don't think that biologically we have the knowledge to make that decision, but I think the department, it is something that they should explore if it is feasible. I do know the Commissioner Tabor actually put that, Ian was talking about the Garmin, Tabor put that in place, same thing. It's a safe hold that you can recall those dogs off of a track pretty easy. So I think having the department research whether or not you can expand areas where black bears can be hunted, especially in Northwest Montana.
What do you want me to write? The department should research if areas.
Research and explore if black bear hunting with hounds can be expanded, particularly in Northwest Montana.
So I watched the commission meeting last year when they were discussing this, and the commissioners specifically asked, I believe it was an attorney that was there, if this could have detrimental impact and we could lose our bear hunting season similar to Washington just went through. And that was brought to the attention that could be a potential ramification, and that's why it was shot down. I think that's exactly what Bruce was talking about. I mean, they did explore it last year, and that's how this came through. And
Right. I watched that meeting as well. I'm saying it could be left in there and left up to the department to research and explore it. I'm not saying we're making the recommendation one way or another, but I think it is an effective tool that may be used, and the department can make that call.
What do folks think? Folks we haven't heard from yet. What do you guys think on this statement here?
I'd be comfortable with that, the way you've got it written there.
Okay.
I am as well.
Okay. Chocolate babies. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay. So here's what I want to make sure that we're 100% clear on this. Okay. So when we're going to reread everything and do the vote again, this will be our official recommendation. So everything that has been striked out It will not be a recommendation in itself, right? So the content with the bullet points that are there here, that is our recommendation. Supplemental document will provide historical context, but will not provide specific actions or things for FWP to do. Are we in? I need everybody to give me a thumbs up on that. Well, hang on, I got Chuck first, then I'll do thumbs up for everybody. Chuck first.
So I'm not clear what we're doing with the transferring elk. Is that going to be part of our recommendation, albeit in the supplemental, or is it out?
I think that is considered an action, and that would be out. And so the only thing that would be remaining in would be like descriptions. So in the blah, 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 this has happened, right? So it's a description of the content of what this recommendation was originally. But the specific actions and what we're asking FWP is only the stuff that is present here. So you can provide the original text of every single recommendation that we've had. That's completely up to you guys and however things get put forward. So you can have whatever you want. What I'm saying is the recommendation and actions to FWP are the only things that we are recommending to FWP is here, these bulleted points. Anything else, the deleted portions, we can do a supplemental document, and that's like a historical record, gives reference, things along those lines. But it is not a recommendation to FWP in any shape, way, or form. It can provide context and description, but those are not the recommendation itself. Does that make sense? I'm going to go through the list and just make sure. Does everybody understand that the only portion of this recommendation is going to be the portions that are bolded out, or excuse me, not within track changes? So statements like this is the recommendation to FWP. Anything additionally that we have on historical background can be provided as supplemental information. But the thing that we're voting on, the thing that we're showing, the thing that we're doing today is just this text here. It has not been deleted.
And the other sentence with it, right?
Yes. Yes. So in this example, yes, thank you, Jessica, for highlighting it. The things that have not been removed from this, that is the official recommendation that we're voting on. And if you guys want to provide supplemental information, that's fine, but this is the official recommendation that's coming forward. I'm going to go through the list and say, do you agree with that as the vote that we are making, that only these areas are what we're going to be voting on? And then I'm going to call a vote. Okay. So say yes or say no. So Aaron.
Yes.
Okay. Brent, not here. Chuck.
Yes.
Druska.
Yes.
Okay. Heath.
Yes.
Ian.
Yes.
Matt.
Yes.
Race.
Yes.
Scott T.
Yes.
Scott V.
Yes.
Stacy.
Yes.
Stephanie.
Yes.
Okay. Now I'm going to painfully reread so that we can actually vote on this. So I'll do this one more time. Okay. Are we ready to take a vote on this recommendation and determine if, actually, let me pause. Deb, is there anything else that I need to clarify in that on your end, or are we clear, it seems?
No, I think that makes sense.
Okay. Are we ready to take a vote on this recommendation and determine if we should submit the recommendation we have to manage elk where they are not to FWP on behalf of the Elk Management Citizen Advisory Group? We need at least one.
Yes.
Thank you. This vote will determine if the recommendation we have to manage elk where they are not should be submitted to FWP on behalf of the Elk Management Citizen Advisory Group. A vote of support indicated by verbal confirmation is necessary from 9 members for this recommendation to be submitted to FWP. If fewer than 9 members are present at the time of the vote, the members not in attendance will be contacted via email and be provided a deadline to respond to the vote. Members that do not respond to the email for a vote will be considered a no. I do not support submitting this recommendation to FWP. When you hear your name called, please verbally indicate if you support the recommendation We have to manage elk where they are not being submitted to FWP on behalf of the Elk Management Citizen Advisory Group by saying yes, or if you do not support the recommendation, we have to manage elk where they are not by being submitted to FWP on behalf of the Elk Management Citizen Advisory Group by saying no. And as a reminder, it is only the text that is present and not through track changes. Aaron,
Yes.
Brent, not here. Chuck.
Yes.
Okay. Druska.
Yes.
Heath.
Yes.
Ian.
Yes.
Matt.
Yes.
Okay. Race.
Yes.
Scott T.
Yes.
Scott B. Scott B. He looks like he's looking for his, or he froze. Stacy.
Yes.
Stephanie.
Yes.
And then Scott V, one more time. Are you a yes or a no? I'm going to say he's a yes. Okay. He's stuck. Okay. So thank you. That was our last official full recommendation to review. We do have the additional track changes that occurred to the other recommendations that we need to review. Do you want to take a 5-minute break before we proceed with those?
Yes.
Okay, let's do that. about 1 more minute, folks. So if you can hear me, please start coming back.
And sorry about that. Half the internet in our town went out, and my house is the only place that has it. So.
Oh, wow. I was working on a project with some folks in Canada, and apparently they had an entire, almost nationwide internet shutdown for about 2 days. It's crazy.
Awesome.
Hank, we're just on a break. We're getting back from break right now.
That's perfect timing, Hank.
Perfect timing then, huh?
Yeah. So if you guys can hear my voice start popping back on. Okay. Well, as folks start coming back on, we'll do a slow start, knowing that we have a special guest here. I'll turn it over to Deb to do an introduction or say anything she'd like.
Oh, I can't say anything I'd like when the director's here.
Of course you can.
No, I'm glad he could be here today for your last meeting, a little bit of your last meeting. I've been sharing things all along with him, all the recommendations, all the discussions. He's been hearing from the public probably just as much or more than each of you have on a lot of these things. So that's all I'll say. And he hears me talk too much anyway, so I'm just going to turn it over to the director.
Well, first of all, I really appreciate everybody that took the time to do this. You guys have been amazing. I took a lot of flack on why I picked the people I did and why we picked the people. And, you're doing exactly what I thought you would do. So as we look forward to this, the idea I had in mind was I didn't want to have a bunch of people that represented different agencies or different groups. I didn't want any former FWP employees. I picked you all on what you wrote in and how you applied. And I wanted people that were free thinkers and thinking about things and to try to come up with solutions and based on your own experiences, not with the data from the department and other things like that. And I think you guys have done an amazing job of doing that. So I really, really appreciate everything you're coming up with. And I know there's been some flack with Kimberly. We hired her specifically for the reason to do the job she's done. I didn't want somebody in there that could tell you what you should think about elk management and how elk management should be and put their biases into it. So we wanted somebody that lets you guys be the experts and talk about it. And she's done a great job on that. And sometimes to the detriment. So I appreciate her sticking it through all this stuff and continuing doing a great job on it. I know there's been a lot of focus on process and different things, but that's what you have to do to get it done right. And once again, I appreciate all your hard work on it. I'll tell you, it was really funny. I did my one-on-one with the governor right after the recommendation hit the paper about choose your weapon. So I walked in to sit down with the governor on my one-on-one. He says, "Well, Hank, now I got to choose a weapon." I said, "Well, sir, you did like everybody else did." I said, "You read the headlines, not the article." I said, "This is strictly a recommendation coming forward from it." I said, "I haven't even seen it yet." I said, "But if you read the article, it talks about that whole process." So I really appreciate you guys thinking outside the box on this stuff and looking at things like that. And I'm sure you've got a lot of flack on it both ways. So we'll see how it vets out, as I think Deb has explained to you. We're gonna go through this like we do anything that comes to us. We're gonna do a fiscal analysis and then do some other things in it, and then we'll bring it forward and see what happens. What I'm contemplating and I would like to do is no matter what these recommendations are, is bring them to the EQC as well and let them know that this is what you guys worked on, because there's a lot of time and effort on this to come up with some solutions. And EQC always wants to get involved with this stuff. So this is an opportunity. It's up for legislators. So some of that may be picked up by them as well. But we're going to look at it and I'll get back with you on what we're going to do with them. But I'll look at the recommendations, weigh them out and go from there. But I just really, really wanted to thank you and appreciate everybody stepping up. I know it's been a hell of a time commitment and sometimes frustrating, but what I've observed, and I stayed away from it on purpose, is that I didn't want anybody to say that I influenced one thing one way or the other. And I don't think I could influence any of you guys anyway. You're all pretty strong-headed, and I like that. So, and where's Ian at? Ian, So one of the things that will work with you, buddy, is we are looking, you know, it was really interesting. We've been talking about the habitat thing, and I talked to Nina Bacchus a couple weeks ago, and she brought something to my attention I didn't even think about. She goes, you know, Hank, with all the beetle kill and the deadfall, she goes, it takes us 3 days to move our sheep. And she goes, imagine what the young ones have to do to get through that stuff now, when they got to cut up stuff and get it done. And she says it's taking away the grass and everything else. So, you know, your area where you're focused on, we got a problem. There's no question about it. And how do we get habitat back? You know, and how do we work on that? So you got my attention, you got our attention on these things and how to work on that, and how to do things like that. And I've talked to some other individuals about that. How do we focus on building habitat back to what like it used to be? You know, and things have changed. And as we know, as things change, they all move. And how do we deal with them? That's what you guys have been tasked with. So I appreciate it. And if you have any questions of me, I'm here for a little bit, and I've got to run to another meeting. So any questions of me? Come on, Stephanie, I know you're thinking about something.
Ian has his hand up.
Ian.
Oh, I just wanted to say thanks for, I guess, thinking outside the box and I guess getting this group together. I think there's a lot of good stuff that came out of it, and I think it is a cool cross section of the hunting public. I learned a lot from everybody that's involved here, and just appreciate the opportunity to participate.
Once again, I appreciate that. And, you know, putting yourself out there is hard for people to do, and you guys have all done it. You're all, you know, people see who you are, and everybody criticizes everybody, but it takes somebody special to step up and do it. And I thank you guys for doing this. And, you know, it'll get better. We will work on these solutions. And I tell people all the time, I'm looking at this as a triangulation fire. I got the Private Land Public Wildlife Council, this group, and then we've got the elk management we're working on right now with Lindsay Parson, and we're going to try to build that up. So there's kind of a triangular approach to get this, and things that we see that duplicate up or triplicate up, they're obviously a good idea because they're coming from 3 different entities to come forward. So that helps us. And there's some things that are overlapping, I think are pretty good, you know, low hanging fruit to work on. So appreciate that. Any other questions or concerns?
There's sometimes a quiet crowd. They think there's Chuck.
Chuck, I knew it.
So again, yeah, ditto, Ian. Thanks for putting us through 40 hours of being in the house when we should be out working. Appreciate that, Hank. But
I know it.
No,
you volunteered, buddy.
That's right. Well, we know the pay's good. That helps a lot.
That's right.
No, Ed B, you mentioned the PLPW. Ed Beal was on today and advised us to follow through. And I was a little bit, I wondered what he meant by that. I would think now that we're, at least our official responsibility as of 5 o'clock today is over. But do you have any comments for us, Hank, as to what do we do as some of these proposals move down the road?
So without listening to Ed, but I think where he's at is because Ed was, I've worked with Ed in the PLPW and also worked with Ed in that licensing funding group. And I think what he's saying is when you're on these groups and it becomes legislature, it goes to legislature. It's always nice to have people that were on this group that can speak from it, support a bill or support something like that. It gives just instant credibility to it. And that's what Ed did and other people have done from that in the past is if one of your ideas come forward and we bring it to legislation and goes in front of hearings, I know it's an extra work on you, but it carries so much weight to say, yes, I was there for 40 hours working on this and we worked hard on this to come together to this. And we believe in this. And that's why we made this recommendation. It's just part of that process that makes it cements it. Does that make sense to you, Chuck?
Yeah, that's good, and that does clarify that as to what goes on. One other question, if I might. So, probably after today, we forward these proposals to the department. then do they go out for an official public comment, or is that going to be kept internal? And then you see what kind of comments you get back in.
I didn't go over that yet, Hank. So I was going to go over at the end.
Oh, sorry, I might have got out of my skis on that one a little bit.
No, that's good because yeah, Deb will cover that. There is a method to our madness, believe me. And this stuff has been planned out and how we're going to do all these things. But like I said, I can't thank you all enough for all the time you spent on this. And I don't think we couldn't have picked a better group. It really has. I've checked in quite a few times, watched it. Like I said, stayed at a distance, and I really like the way you gel and interact with each other. And it's really been impressive. It really represents. It makes me smile. It represents Montana in such a good way that we can pick on people to step up and do this, and they take the commitment seriously. They go forward and be willing to be criticized, and they're willing to stand up and take that. So thank you. I applaud you all for that. It takes a special individual to be able to do that. So you should be proud of yourselves. So thank you.
And if I may, Director, just to follow up on your answer to Chuck, was the other piece, I think, to where you guys will continue is you guys talked about in the beginning being champions, and that could take a lot of forms, like the director mentioned, speaking at the legislature or our commission, or just responding to the public. Is just really championing. God, that's a hard word to say, isn't it? Being a champ of these recommendations is I think really your next steps.
Well, if there's nothing else, I will let you guys continue. I don't want to take any more of your time than I have to. So once again, thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you all. I really mean that. Been impressive. So, okay.
Hank, feel free to stay if you can.
Yeah, I got to run into another meeting with Cap.
I figured you did.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Hank. Okay, so we have, at this point, we've got about 2 hours left, and we've got 4 recommendations that folks have added tweaks, changes, or adjustments to that we have to go over. So we just have to make sure that the intent is the same. We'll look over those, and then I'll ask you guys if the intent is the same and if we need to revote. Any questions, comments, concerns before we start? Okay. So let's start. This is the first one that I have, and it will take me a couple seconds in between because my computer's running a little slow right now. Choose your weapon and season recommendation. The only changes that I have seen were provided by Chuck, so I give him the ability to talk about this. He tweaked this section here, so I can give you a second to read it over. So limitations and unintended consequences. So originally it said this plan, well, it should say he tweaked this section in particular. I believe you added these, a little bit of content in here. Chuck, is that correct? And this is the only section you changed?
Yeah, that's correct. And it isn't just me. Heath is a co-partner in this deal too.
Most definitely. Do you want to talk a little bit about the changes that you made so we can have that in context? And then I'll get you, Ian.
I'm going to ask Keith to go ahead and to speak to this first, and then I can backfill where he needs.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think this part here that Chuck added is basically, from the feedback we've received. Obviously, everybody's probably received a whole bunch of it, and just kind of a caveat that there's obviously an overcrowding issue that people would like addressed. I was at a ELF meeting in Dillon last week, and it was a definite topic. So yeah, that's what this is about. We're not saying we necessarily have the 100% correct proposal, but we think that something needs to be done, and this is something that we've looked at and it's plausible.
Okay.
So, one of my thoughts too is we need to keep the overcrowding subject on the table. And by presenting this as one reason, or one solution. If it indeed is a solution, may not be, but it needs to stay on the table and be addressed. And we really haven't done much else in this arena out of this committee. So, you know, this limitations section shows that there is limitations to this deal. And if this isn't the right solution, then we would ask the FWP to offer and test a better solution. So that, you know, we don't want this solution to die and then nothing takes its place. That's the upshot of this addendum. As far as changing any intent, I don't see that is happening. So stand for questions if there are any.
So no changes to the justification or description or anything along those lines, just potential tweaks to the limitations and unintended consequences that don't directly affect the intent. Ian.
I think you guys left out your personal cell numbers on there so they can contact you. No,
they already
Yeah,
know them. Don't worry about that. They know our number.
No, I wanted to just say that this, you know, at first I was kind of bummed about some of the backlash on this, but I'm proud that we got people in the state talking, and exactly, I'm glad you added that sentence in there. You know, exactly what you're saying. If the department doesn't, the crowding is the issue. That's what we were trying to address. And if this doesn't go through and this isn't a great option, then we need to have something else. So I'm just giving you guys a thumbs up that I agree with it and like it.
Okay. Other questions for Chuck or Heath or comments?
So this is the only change you made to it, this purple section right here.
Yeah, that's right. It's yeah.
So
go ahead, Scott.
I guess on the first sentence, it says, should be noted that, well, this proposal was carefully considered. It is plausible that it itself may not solve the problem of overcrowding on public land. It might actually accentuate the problem on public land, correct? I mean, it could even have a more dramatic effect than what we're saying here.
You know, I wouldn't be able to comment on that without with any good justification. You know, I guess anything's possible with this. So I think the opinions are as varied as the hundreds of comments we've gotten.
Yeah. I think that might have been one of the points that Scott was making when he originally voted too, is one of his thoughts there in that space.
Yeah. The point's taken. I guess the reason, you know, I've said it before, this isn't a personal ride for me. It was that we were asked to address overcrowding on public land. Nothing was coming forward from the group or from anywhere else. So I threw this one out there with maybe not enough thought put into it, but as I talked around to some other folks, it seemed like this was a plausible idea. Look, if it isn't, that's fine. You know, if it isn't, that's fine. But let's put it to the Fish and Game and say, look, there's a problem with overcrowding, and no isn't the answer. You know, no to this isn't the answer. If you say no, Fish and Game, then or FWP, then please come up with some kind of other solutions, because there seems to be some need to address overcrowding on public land.
Thanks, Chuck. Let's get Matt's comments.
Yeah, Chuck, I mean, I think I'm with you. When we were, you know, like throwing out ideas, it seemed like a great idea. And, you know, like maybe it's not going to go, but you're exactly right that the issue of overcrowding. And so I'm wondering if maybe on this, you have it buried way down here on like the third or fourth or sentence, or maybe we should move the issue of overcrowding needs to be addressed. If you move that to the first sentence, and then the rest of it kind of explains. I mean, it might be just kind of.
Yeah, that does set the stage. Yeah.
Maybe inconsequential, but just a thought.
Is it in the intent too? The original intent of the document? Mm-hmm.
It doesn't hurt to say it twice because it was one of the first things we were asked to address.
Okay. So go ahead.
So how many proposals did we give that address overcrowding? Is this the only one, Chuck?
I don't know. I think some of the others, it was kind of an ancillary. If you could redistribute hunters, then you could reduce the overcrowding. So that's a good question. We ought to.
So we'll circle back at the end and see if there's anything else that we need to consider, but these are all of the recommendations that we have as of thus far.
I think the manage elk where they're not is a main intent is to reduce overcrowding.
Well, yeah, because there's no elk where Ian's hunting, but what I guess I'm getting at is there any other, I mean, there had so many of these things. Is there any other of our proposals that are like trying to, that's all our focus is to like limit the number of hunters during rifle season and really watch the overcrowding? Is there any other of these other ones? I'm reading through them now, but I can't control the mouse on hers.
Yeah, sorry. That makes it harder for you. Specifically, no, but let's hold that and circle back at the end and have that discussion, because if it's something that we need to think about, then that's something that we need to think about as to how it can be addressed. Stephanie, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I think the A9 bundle kind of addresses some of the overcrowding issue because it will take some of those bee hunters off of the landscape. So I think that's kind of a side effect of the A9 bundle, is removing, elk bee hunters off of the public landscape, which would help reduce some crowding on public.
Okay. Let's circle back to this idea of overcrowding on public land too shortly. Let's get through these, make sure that the intent of this one hasn't changed, and then we'll go through our recommendations, and then if we need to do something additionally at the end, we can circle back and have that discussion. Any other questions for Chuck or Heath on this one in particular with these changes? Okay. So I'm gonna ask you guys, I'm gonna have to read a thing for voting, because I need a vote to make sure that this doesn't change the intent. If it changes the intent, if we get folks, at least 4 folks saying that it does change the intent, then we have to re-vote on this one in particular. So I'll just make sure that we're all on the same page here. Are you guys ready for that? I'm gonna just not do the first part then. This vote.
We're just voting like.
What?
What are we voting on? Like,
yeah,
we're voting on just this amendment or support for the whole thing again?
That's a great question. So what we are going to do is vote to determine if the intent of the original recommendation has changed by this track changes that Chuck and Heath have added. If a change to the intent of the original recommendation has occurred, then we have to re-vote for the committee itself on the recommendation. But if this change here does not change the intent of the recommendation, then we don't need to re-vote. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Scott, I'm going to pause for you in particular and say, does that make sense?
I don't know. I guess my frustration on it is we knew going into this that we were going to piss some people off. And now that we pissed some people off, we're trying to make a justification on why we pissed them off and say, hey, well, we're sorry, but we still like it, but let's send it anyways. So why don't you just own it from the front end like we did and said that in the beginning, say, hey, we passed it, send it off and do it. Now we're just trying to make a little justification in here, like, hey, we've received some positive and negative comments, more negative than not, but we're still going to send it forward. Why even acknowledge that? Why not just send it off? I mean, sorry, we're not going to change anything. We've already approved it. Send it off. And I'll go back on mute.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't bother me either way. I mean, I'll send it off. I think the only reason was based on the feedback we got. Maybe this isn't 100% the answer, but it needs to be addressed. Yeah, so I'm fine with deleting it and sending it on. It really doesn't matter to me one way or the other. I think either way, we're getting this to the same point.
Okay, so maybe no changes at all and just leave as is. Ian?
I personally like that. I mean, I like that statement. I mean, I own it. I'm not gonna hide from that, and I'm glad that everybody in the state's talking about elk now. So that's my point. But I do like the addition, and I don't think it changed the intent.
Okay.
I will say that a lot of the comments we're getting are from public that has never read the proposal because it's not out there. So unless they watched the meeting on YouTube, other than reading the article, they really don't know what it says. So like, there's been a lot of comments about, I'm a meat hunter. That's great. We didn't affect cow elk hunting. So, you know, until the proposal is actually out there, I don't know that, I mean, there's some people that are adamantly against it. Don't get me wrong, but I don't really know that anybody really knows what they're arguing for or against right now.
Okay. Aaron?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say exactly what he said, and you know, with the director on, look, the governor even brought it up, right? He hadn't read it either, but yeah, there's a lot of slash back on that. You're gonna have the people again that are gonna be set in the way, but we're voting on it just as a recommendation that it could in effect work, and if, like we've been saying, if they take even a piece of it to try and make that work, I think it'd be great. But yeah, just saying that it's going to be effective in September is kind of what we're dealing with. And that's just simply not the case. It's a long ways down the road before any part of this would even come to fruition, in my opinion.
So it seems we have to have a discussion of if this additional content is needed or if we just leave as is. Where are you guys on that? I just kind of want to circle back on that because we're going to have we can discuss if it changes the intent, but we also need to know, do we need this content? Do we not need this content? And then we can have that conversation about the intent. And Deb, you're on camera. Is there something you wanted to add?
Yeah, just two things. I agree with Keith and Aaron about, you know, the general public hasn't seen this yet. So you're right. I mean, we are going to be putting this out for public comment. All the recommendations are going out for public comment. So they will see that then. You know, I think, you know, the next step here, it seems, is just a vote on this addition or not. Maybe not just changing the intent, just to vote on it, because I'm hearing some people think it shouldn't be considered. So I think that's probably the next step there, is just to see if you should include it or not.
Okay. Matt, what are your thoughts?
So Deb, who do these recommendations go to exactly? I mean, changing a sentence in here, are they even going to get that far? Or are they just going to say, choose your weapon? We're not going to do it. I mean, I guess just some clarity of who this actually goes to make the decisions to move it on to public comment.
So all of them are going to go out to public comment. As far as we feel anyway, what we're going to do so I'll go over this now. What we're going to do is give it to our budget office and give them to our legal unit and have them do a fiscal analysis and a legal analysis on it. So what that means is there anything in here that we don't have the authority to do? Who does have the authority? Or is there anything just wonky that might just get us in the crosshairs legally? And then the fiscal analysis is literally going to do a fiscal note. If you're familiar at all with what we do for the legislature, anytime they develop a bill, we create a companion fiscal note saying how much it's going to cost us. Some fiscal notes really have no impact because we can absorb them into an existing duty. and some fiscal notes say it's going to cost X amount. So it really, whatever comes out of that, we will be sending those to the public. So the public will have your recommendation, the fiscal impact, if any, and any legal complications. And then that's going out to the public within, or for 30-day comment, and then it comes back to the director for review.
So ultimately, the director.
Yeah, the director makes a decision on moving forward on any of these recommendations.
Okay.
Thanks, Matt. Druska? You're on mute.
Could you please go to the intent portion? So it's not a break it or, yeah, it's not a break it thing for me on the stuff that was added, but it does feel a little bit like we're apologizing in advance. You know, that this might not work, but at the same time, we had to do something. And if we don't like it, then, or if you don't like it, then FWP should do something else. I don't know. I think the issue of overcrowding needs to be addressed, period. That could go into the intent portion. And then, you know, and somewhere in here, if you want FWP to, if they don't do this one, that you should come up with their own solution for overcrowding. We could stick that somewhere else. But I mean, the unintended consequence of this is public isn't going to be very happy, period.
Okay, so maybe changing the unintended consequences is the public will not be happy, and then continuing with the rest of the statements. Okay, let's hear from Scott and then Chuck, and then we're going to take a vote to see if we need this additional context or not, and then we'll think about the intent. So Scott, then Chuck.
I think Daruska nailed it on the head right there. Sounds like we're apologizing for it, and she's a pretty good speaker, but that's what I get on this. So it sounds like, hey, we've made the decision. We're going to stick with our decision, but now we're going to put a little disclaimer apology in there just because we know we're pissing people off. So anyways, and then for the record, before the break, I was trying to vote yes, but the batteries in my stinking mouse died and I couldn't unclick. So
Thank you, Scott. I was going to send you an email. I appreciate it. Okay. Okay, Chuck, let's get your thoughts.
So I take offense to saying I was apologizing. I was not apologizing. I was offering how important it is to get this passed. Since this is causing so much controversy, since I drafted it, I will now offer to remove all of it except for the portion about the unintentional negative effect on deer.
So remove all of it except for here. Is that correct, Chuck?
Yep.
Okay. And
So then
Sorry, Chuck.
so there's nothing else on the table now.
yeah, that's the original text. Ian, and then I think Druska, you said something.
I don't know. I liked your change. I liked your clarification. I guess I'd make a motion to vote on it as you have it modified here. We've already decided to send this on through, and say just a vote on this would, I guess, I make a motion to vote on it as you submitted it.
Okay.
I'd second that.
Okay. So let's, Druska, can I get your thoughts? You were going to add something.
I was just going to tell Chuck I was sorry. Didn't mean to make it sound like you were apologizing.
Oh, well, that's fine. I'm just, you know, let's just decide, move on.
Yeah, let's do a
I'm
vote.
okay with it the way it is too. I mean, it's not going to break this recommendation for me. So
Okay. So I'm gonna say yes or no to yes, keep the original document how it was. No changes. No means make additional changes that are present here. So yes, keep the text that we had previously, no changes. No means to include these changes. Are we clear on that?
A no keeps the change.
No is going to include this text here. So a no is going to
Okay.
look like this. No would be this. A yes keeps the original text.
Got it.
A yes is the original recommendation. No changes. Are we clear? A no means I would like to change it. Okay.
Good.
So yes to keeping the original recommendation, or no to add these changes. Can I get a yes or no from you, Aaron?
No.
Okay. And then yes or no, Brent, not here. Yes or no, Chuck?
Yes.
Okay. Druska, yes or no?
Okay, now I'm confused because Chuck
Yes
just
for
voted.
yes for original text. No would be this text. Are we confused? I'm going to type it in here. Oops.
Okay, my vote is yes.
Okay, Druska's vote is yes. Okay, Heath.
Yes.
Okay, Ian.
No.
Okay, Matt.
No.
Race.
Yes.
Okay. Scott T.
No.
Okay. Scott V.
Yes.
Okay. So Stacy.
Yes.
Okay. Stephanie.
No.
Okay. So we want this additional text. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 folks want additional text. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are saying no. They do not want. They want the original text. That was a kind of confusing way of rephrasing that. So sorry about that. So the folks who voted yes want the original text, not including this. The folks who, and that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7 votes for including. Basically, what I'm saying is we need to tweak and adjust the text now at this point in time. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 no's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 yeses. Does that make sense? Okay. So how do we want to tweak or adjust this?
So leave it the way it was presented.
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
Okay, so if we leave it how it is presented, does it change the intent?
But I'm confused. Was this because you guys, is this the 9 vote too, meaning you have to have 9 to vote on this one as well?
Yeah. So we'd have
Okay.
to have at least 9 folks say we are going forward with this, but we don't have 9 folks saying we're going
Okay.
forward with that. So how do you, Stephanie?
Could we just take out the part, it should be noted too that the point person on this proposal has received both positive and negative comments. However, the negative comments down to FWP period, stop. Or actually just most common. Sorry, stop at most common and keep that last sentence.
So you want this text?
Yep, because I think that just says, hey, this proposal was designed to address overcrowding. If it doesn't, then there needs to be an alternative. It doesn't have anything that seems apologetic or anything. It just says, hey, the main reason is to address overcrowding. If this isn't it, think of something else.
I'm
Does
good with
make
that.
sense?
Are we comfortable with this text?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to call a vote. And what I'm going to ask this time is, does it change the intent of adding this text here? Does it change the original intent of the recommendation? And if a change to the intent has occurred, we will have to revote. Okay. So I'm going to read this so that we're very, very clear. Do we understand that as of thus far? We're voting on intent. Okay. This vote will determine if the intent of the recommendation has been changed from the original vote by the Elk Management Citizen Advisory Group. A vote of support indicated by a verbal confirmation is necessary from 9 members for the intent of the recommendation to be considered the same or unchanged from the original vote by the Elk Management Citizen Advisory Group. If fewer than 9 members are present at the time of the vote, the members not in attendance will be contacted via email and provided a deadline to respond to the vote. Members that do not respond to the email for a vote will be considered a no. The intent is not the same as the original recommendation that was voted on by the Elk Management Citizen Advisory Group. When you hear your name called, please verbally indicate if you agree that the intent of the recommendation is the same or unchanged from the original vote done by the Elk Management Citizen Advisory Group by saying yes, or if you believe that the intent is not the same or has been changed from the original vote by the Elk Management Citizen Advisory Group by saying no. So to repeat, if you agree the intent of the recommendation is the same or unchanged from the original vote, say yes. If you believe that the intent has been changed or is not the same, say no. Okay. Okay. Aaron.
Yes.
Okay. Brent.
Yes.
Chuck. Chuck is yes. Okay. Druska.
Yes.
Okay. Heath.
Yes.
Okay. Ian.
Yes.
Matt.
Yes.
Race.
Yes.
Scott T.
Yes.
Scott B.
No, and the reason I'm saying no is because it kind of leaves an open-ended solution for Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. We're not given a definitive thing, so I think it changes it.
Okay. Thank you, Scott, for voicing that. Stacy.
Yes.
Okay. Stephanie.
Yes.
Okay. So I have everyone present voted that the intent is not changed with the exception of Scott V. And Brent is not present. So we do not. Did somebody say something? Okay. So we do not need to re-vote on this one, and this will be the document as is. Questions, comments, concerns? So we've got an hour and 15 to do the last ones. I'm gonna pull up the next one, should be the Access Plus. While I'm doing that, Ian, can you let us know what the specific changes were that you did on that one in particular?
Yeah, I just got some comments on some last minute comments kind of on the monetary side of this one. And I've just wanted to clarify with the statement. I just added one statement that, hey, an equitable financial compensation or, I guess compensation package in general on this proposal. That's going to be one of the trickier things to flesh out, just kind of acknowledging that. Basically, I got some comment that, wouldn't be supported if there was if hunters had to get or pitch in their own money, whatever. I don't want that to be a barrier for this to go forward. So I'm just, I guess, adding in this statement that, yeah, this is going to be a tricky part of the proposal. We're going to have to, FWP is going to have to look at this if they go forward with this. So.
What conversations or discussions do we need to have on this? Jeriska.
So I think there's probably enough in the first two sentences. I think when you start saying if pursued a special stakeholder meeting, then we're telling them what to do with the fiscal issue that this might have. And we don't have any say on that, and their legal department will, or fiscal department will decide all of it. But I think by saying there might be a fiscal note and equitable compensation is necessary. I think that's enough.
Okay, so that Heath.
I don't even know if we need it. In the original proposal, as you had it written, stated clearly that, you know, the landowner may charge what they want to charge, and it will be known up front. You know, we voted to approve that. I don't know that we need to have a caveat in there stating anything else. Yeah, I guess I don't know that it's necessary. As long as it's, you know, I'm not necessarily a big fan of that specific point, but at the same time, as long as people are aware of it up front, I don't know why we need to have that, you know, this part of it in there.
Okay. Matt?
I think you have to have it in here because this whole thing fails in my mind without compensation. I mean, the idea that that the biggest barrier to entry for landowners is that hunters aren't adequately trained is probably a false premise. I mean, the idea, if you want people to really buy into this, they have to be compensated financially in a large way. And so, yeah, I mean, I think you do need to address the compensation in here in some manner because there will be a large fiscal note with this. So
isn't the compensation already addressed in there? This is just saying that it's like what you added just says that it's going to be a point of contention. That's what I mean. I'm aware of the compensation part of it, and I think that's, you know, very valid. I'm just saying I don't know that we need this note that says it's going to be a point of contention. I mean, we know it's going to be a point of contention.
now the first one, it says the goal would be no cost hunting through giving landowners confidence.
Right, but the second one says
free hunting. Okay. Establish their own fees. All right. Yeah.
Do we need this text?
Sorry.
No. It's a question for the group. Jeriska.
So Ian, in this program, are you expecting FWP to pay the landowner something, or the hunters would be always paying it?
Well, I think like a base rate would be nice if that could be out of block funds, but I guess I wanted to set up something to where, you know, like Matt was indicating, if he feels like he needs to be paid $100 a day kind of as a trespass fee, that at least it would suck to cut out a bunch of landowners out of the equation. If that's what their requirement is, then that's what it is, and then it's up to the hunter whether they're going to participate or not. If landowner, I guess I see that if the landowner gets greedy, whatever, then he's not going to have people hunt it. But I guess that my point in adding the comment there is that the compensation portion is going to be a tricky aspect. It's going to need, you know, probably to involve a lot of landowners just saying, hey, what is it going to actually take to allow people to hunt your property? And if it's additional cash payment or whatever, then that's what it is. The landowner spoke, and we're going to have to address that, or they're not going to participate.
Well, the reason why I ask is there's a big difference if you're asking for the transaction to just be between the landowner and the hunter versus somehow FWP having to subsidize this. And if it's just between the landowner and the hunter, then I don't think what you added, then I don't think you need what you added. If you're expecting FWP to carry part of this fiscal note, then it's going to get really tricky because I don't know if they'll do it. And yeah, so to me, it matters which group you think are negotiating the deal.
Yeah, I guess I could see both ways. I don't know. That's the tricky part of this one. I think it's a good starting point, but I don't know. I'm that's going to be a tough one to flesh out.
Let's get Scott T and then Scott V, and then we'll see if we need this text or not.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Matt a little bit that the financial part of that's going to be a pretty big deal. And I don't have a silver bullet to fix this or anything, because I see where everybody's coming from here. But, you know, I think if there's a cap at 25,000 on block management funds, if you're a landowner and somebody shows up your door and says, I can write you a check for that, and then I'm the only one that's going to bother you all year, I think Fish and Game needs to be more competitive on that payment part. So I don't know if maybe the easiest thing to do would be to add a bullet point that just says Fish, Wildlife and Parks needs to look at raising the cap on block funds, but they got to get in line with the competition that's out there as far as leases and outfitters and things like that. They have to. If they're way below what market value is for a ranch, people aren't going to stay in block.
Thanks, Scott. Scott V.
So correct me if I'm wrong. So how it's worded now, if a landowner said, hey, I'm going to give access and I'm going to charge, I'll give 15 people access to come hunt my land if you give me a special draw bull tag, but then he's granted the privilege to charge them the fee he deems necessary. That's how we read it, right? I'll say sure. So,
Yeah.
so
Waiting for the group
hypothetically,
response there.
I just want somebody to correct me if I'm interpreting this wrong. So we're going to give this landowner a bull tag, say hypothetically in the Bears Paw Mountains, phenomenal bull tag. So this landowner hypothetically owns X amount, and then he charges $5,000. He'll say, yeah, I'm going to let everybody hunt that they want to, but I'm going to charge them $5,000 for 2 days. So he's going to get a guaranteed bull tag, and then he's going to make it so it's like nobody can really afford to do that. And then he's going to guarantee himself a tag. Should we put a cap on that, on what they should charge, to make it reasonable, so Joe Blow the hunter would have an opportunity for it? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
No,
Yeah.
I think I'm tracking with you. I guess I see where you're coming from. I think like if a bull tag was I'm just saying, hey, if you're gonna come with access, you could be given prep through the 454 program. You could be given preference if you're saying, hey, I'm gonna give additional access through this program, and then you would, I guess, I thought, maybe I'm wrong, that the 454 was kind of a competitive program, but I was intending that, hey, there's preferential treatment given to somebody that's going to participate in this if they go through 454. But
because what I'm looking at is like on the second bullet point, it says no cap would be placed on what a landowner could charge to hunt their property. So not many local Montana guys are going to go out there and write a check for $5,000 or $10,000 to go on somebody's land. But there's a ton of out-of-staters that if they could draw that bull tag in, say, the Bears Paws, they could easily write that check. I think you're going to, without putting a cap on that. So now we're going to give the landowner his bull tag, but he could put the rate so high nobody else, local Montanans, could afford it. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, that hey, there's going to be you know, tried to do my best here, but that there's going to be additional conversations on that compensation component. It'd be, yeah,
So let's circle back here, and because we've already voted on the recommendation itself, let's circle back on this language here, if it's needed or not. I'm gonna ask you guys,
Reading that
Yes.
again now, thinking of it like this, now that I've given it a lot more stuff. I like that green.
Okay. And you mean the green that's there currently, not the one, all of the additional parts, right? You're on mute.
That kind of addresses like what me and Ian were just talking about, like, hey, it kind of.
Okay.
And cast some scrutiny, like, hey, this guy, we shouldn't give him a bolt egg because he's, charging $5,000 to a guy that lives in Big Sandy.
So I'm gonna call a vote and say, yes, this green language here is needed, or no, this green language is not needed, and then we will vote to see if it changes the intent, okay? So yes, the green language is needed, or no, this green language is not needed. So I'll start with Aaron.
Yes.
Okay, Druska. I mean, excuse me, Brent. Sorry, so sorry. Not here. Chuck.
Yes.
Druska.
Yes.
Keith.
Yes.
Ian.
yes.
Matt.
Yes.
Okay. Race.
Yes.
Scott T.
Yes.
Scott V.
Yes.
Stacy.
Yes.
Okay. Stephanie.
Yes.
Okay. Now I'm going to ask, do we need any other questions before the intent? Okay. I'll read the text here. This vote will determine if the intent of the recommendation has changed from the original vote by the Elk Management Citizen Advisory Group. A vote of support indicated by a verbal confirmation is necessary from 9 members for the intent of this recommendation to be considered the same or unchanged from the original vote by the Elk Management Citizen Advisory Group. If fewer than 9 members are present at the time of the vote, the members not in attendance will be contacted via email and be provided a deadline to respond to the vote. Members that do not respond to the email for a vote will be considered a no. The intent is not the same as the original recommendation that was voted on by the Elk Management Citizen Advisory Group. When you hear your name called, please verbally indicate if you agree that the intent of the recommendation is the same or unchanged from the original vote by the Elk Management Citizen Advisory Group by saying yes, or if you believe the intent is not the same or is changed from the original vote by the Elk Management Citizen Advisory Group by saying no. So yes, if you believe that it is the same or unchanged, and no, if you believe that it is not the same or has been changed. Okay. Aaron.
Yes.
Brent. Not here. Chuck.
Yes.
Druska.
Yes.
Keith.
Yes.
Ian.
Yes.
Okay. Matt.
Yes.
Race.
Yes.
Scott T.
Yes.
Scott V.
Yes.
Stacy.
Yes.
Stephanie.
Yes.
Okay. Everybody present voted yes. So we do not need an additional vote on the recommendation. The next, there were some changes to the A9 tag bundle, I believe. I believe that was also Ian, if I'm not mistaken.
No, it's Scott.
Is that correct?
That was Scott and Matt, I think.
I believe it was Scott and Matt, but I believe Ian submitted the change.
Oh, okay. Excuse me.
Yeah, I submitted some comments.
This here is your change, I believe. Stakeholder relationships. And then in the description, you changed all of this. Is that correct?
Yeah, so basically, I was hoping to kind of clarify that, hey, you know, let's move away from the over-the-counter public land cow tags, take care of the issue where the issue exists, which is on private land, put the pressure on those elk, and, you know, maybe try not to push our, you know, our elk that are behaving good on public land, you know, try not to push them off as much.
Considering we touched the description section, I'm going to say the intent has definitely been changed. Thoughts, folks?
Well, we kind of said it before. I mean, that FWP to look into rolling over existing resident tag. It is adjusting it, but I'm just firming up that no, I guess the way I see it is that we do want to take some pressure off of our public land elk, just so there's no confusion on the intent there.
Stephanie.
I disagree that this changes the intent of it. All it is, I think, in more or less cleanup language, saying that the over-the-counter tags will go away, basically. Instead of, I mean, we already kind of said that. We're just saying that if they are to pick this up, that we encourage them to get rid of those over-the-counter B tags. I mean, again, I think all of us are kind of in agreement here that somewhere along this process, a lot of our proposals didn't necessarily address the overcrowding issue. And so this actually is the one that has this as a side effect. And so it just clarifies that side effect, which I think is good.
Everybody should read that last sentence. I did add that on. That would be a potential intent change. I would propose taking things a little bit further, but I'm not set on that one. Basically, I'm saying that, hey, if you do get selected for one of the special draw cow tags, that would be a permit, and that you'd be using your bull tag on a cow. I mean, that's how this was for years and years. That's what I remember growing up with, basically going back to the old way of doing business when we didn't have distribution issues.
Okay. Let's get Scott V, then Druska.
In theory, I agree with the last sentence, but like, I guess in my area, you have the Beartooth Wildlife Management Area, which is owned by Fish, Wildlife and Parks. And there's so many elk in there, you can shoot 2 elk and that would be considered on the public land. There's some spots where I think you need to have that. So I hate to see it where it's all inclusive on public land when there's some public land that this is a good thing to have where you can shoot 2 elk on that.
Thanks, Scott. Okay, Druska.
So I need Scott or Matt to tell me whether or not this changes anything, because I don't know enough about A tags, B tags, all of that stuff.
Let's hear from Scott and Matt.
That's a good question. I think it doesn't change a lot as far as the heart of what's behind the intent of the A9 bundle. I guess I'd really have to study it to try to figure out if I see anything else that does. But I mean, on the surface, I don't see it. I'm curious to see what Matt's take is on it, but just taking it at face value right now, I don't see anything that changes a whole lot. Not sure I answered your question, but.
No, you did. Do you see anything, Matt?
I'm just trying to sort through here, just getting my mind wrapped around.
Okay.
Ian and I think a little differently. I think in little short sentences about this long, so. You know, and I presume this last sentence pertains to is he thinking the entire state, or is this in over objective units? Is valid on public land?
Yeah, that's my question as well, Matt. Because if it's for the entire state, we still got to manage cow elk numbers statewide. I mean, even if they are on public land, you know, I guess, yeah, that's my question as well. Is this over objective only, Ian, or are you talking statewide?
Well, coming from a guy that doesn't ever get to see elk and doesn't have any elk up here, I don't know. I'd be happy with it statewide, but that last statement is the one that you know, I'm taking a little bit further. So if that people feel like it needs to get deleted out of there, that's fine. I guess if it areas is within objective, I don't want to create a depredation issue by having too many people run around on public land, you know, trying to address that excessive public land pressure.
Okay, let's get Druska, I think then.
Well, so didn't the A9 bundle, isn't that just for private land?
Yes, it is.
So why do we keep throwing public in there? I'm confused.
Probably a lack of trust that this won't end up being valid on public land. Would be my guess.
Because I thought the whole point of this recommendation was to create a private land only cow tag.
Got head nods on that.
Yeah, when I look at this, I think this last sentence is its own proposal, separate from this A9 bundle.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree as well.
Okay. So
Also agree. I just think eliminate that last sentence.
This whole section or this last sentence we're talking about?
Just the last sentence. Or sorry, the last section, the department.
The last section. Yeah, it's a whole section. Yeah. Do we need these other changes? That's good.
Well, that's what I was just going to ask is if we're going to get to a point as a group in this meeting in our last hour where we have a chance to throw out some other just bullet pointed items, maybe all of these changes would be better put in a bullet point that suggests that FWP, you know, really, you know, put the B tags and the non-resident B tags under a microscope and take them out of this so that they don't cloud the water, so to speak, with our vote that we've already done on this.
Okay.
I agree with that because I can't do these changes very well.
Okay. So, and then I'm assuming these we incorporate in that as well. So what I'm going to ask is all of this would be, we do not need So no, we do not need to include this text, or yes, we do need to include this text. And keeping in mind, we can circle back. We've got 45 minutes, so hopefully we'll get this Druska and Chuck first before I rant even more.
So when you say this text, do you mean all the changes throughout the recommendation?
Correct. So I'm talking all of the changes. No, we do not need to include the changes in the text.
Okay.
Or yes, we need to include the changes in the text. Chuck,
thank you.
Of course. Chuck.
So I like the well, now it's the last change above the red lined out change. I like that. Heath and I brought that very very point up some time ago.
Mhm.
And that will, we do hear of overcrowding by non-residents. My question is, would the A9, the A9 doesn't do anything with non-residents on public land. Is that correct? Am I reading that right?
Yeah, that should be correct.
So I really like this. I keep hearing it all the time of too many non-residents on public ground, and they're the people that come, and I keep hearing there's more non-residents coming. Well, there isn't more non-residents coming to hunt bulls or bucks, because that's been capped for 20 years by this state. So that doesn't happen. But what does happen is that non-residents come and hunt on a special B tag without getting a general license. So if we nip that in the bud a little bit, where they're not coming to hunt cow elk on public land without a general tag, we can do something there with overcrowding. I like that. I really like that sentence, and I would like to keep it in. I would also, in the in the paragraph above, I would just delete that last sentence. Starting, this has been documented. That's true, but we don't need to, we don't need to tell the fish and game what they already know. Those would be suggested changes that I would make, and then I would vote to include the changes.
Okay. So Chuck's thinking about including these changes. Other folks are thinking about maybe making a specific statement or side recommendation to talk about overcrowding or those special B tags. Druska, let's get your thoughts in.
I would prefer not to muddy the A9 tag bundle with B tag talk. So I would rather put the issuance of non-resident and also it muddies because the A9 tag is only for private land. And then you start talking about public land and non-residents. I would rather have that be a special bullet that we say, do something about non-resident hunters, and leave the entire text of the A9 tag bundle the way it was.
Okay. So options are adding this text or not adding this text, and possibly if there are portions that we like of the text, to think about creating a separate sentence or recommendation when we get to that point. Ian.
Well, we did already have it in there, and that was kind of the only reason that I voted for this proposal, was that, so that if you, read what the original text was, FWP to look into rolling existing over-the-counter resident tag, blah, blah, blah. So I was just firming that statement up that was in there already.
Okay.
So I guess I got a question. If we look at the existing statement, it says FWP to look into rolling all existing over-the-counter resident and non-resident B tags into the A9 tag bundle tags that are valid on all lands, including public land. Are we saying they're valid on public land? Or what are we saying? They're not. I know they're not supposed to be. What does that sentence say?
I think you're missing that, and consider a special draw for B tags that are valid on all lands, including public.
Yeah. Okay. I missed that strike through. Yeah, I couldn't tell what was new and what was old, I guess.
Sorry. Okay, I'm going to ask to do a vote because we've got about 45 minutes left, and it seems like there's a possibility we want to discuss next steps and other actions, and we have one more recommendation to look at. So, no, we do not need to include the changes in the text, so the green text in particular, or yes, we need to include these changes into the text of the recommendation. So no, We do not need them. Yes, we do. Aaron.
I'm gonna vote yes.
Okay. Brent, not here. Chuck.
Yes.
Driska.
No.
Heath.
Yeah. No.
Ian.
Yes.
Matt.
No.
Race.
No.
Okay. Scott T.
No.
Scott V.
I just want to clarify, no means we do not, or no need.
No means we do not need to include the text, the changes in the text, and yes is we need to include these changes in the text. So yes would be these green things would be added.
I want to
No.
make sure I'm voting right. No.
No. Okay. Stacy. Stacy? Oh, not there, I guess. Stephanie.
Yes.
Oh, an interesting spot. So we've got 4 yeses, and we don't have Stacy, and we're not going to have Brent. So, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 say no, we do not need to include it. And I know we will not.
I think that pretty much means no's have it and we move on, right?
Chuck, were you about to say something?
No, I was just gonna say, move on. That's a,
Like this will still move forward, right? It'll just have the old language saying FWP to look into rolling existing over the counter, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So the original text will be present. Hi, Stacy. How are you doing? Question for you. Are you a yes or a no?
I was a no.
No. Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Okay. So we are comfortable with the original text moving forward. Okay. Sorry, my computer is moving very slow. Stakeholder meetings is the last one. And the only change that was here was adding the liaison and specifically identifying Stephanie and Chuck. Is that correct?
yeah, I'll speak to that. So this proposal will go to FWP, and I don't see that, and maybe Deb, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't see where they're going to maybe want to do the legwork or even have an incentive to do the legwork to pull these different groups together. And so it's going to take somebody to do that. And so I talked to Stephanie about that, thinking we needed a landowner sportsman on that so we didn't show bias here, and pull the groups together, get the first meeting going, and then turn it over to those groups to continue that effort. So it would be an initial liaison only to get the ball rolling, and then step back away from that process. That's I don't want this to get just dropped because there's not follow.
I mean, we do things like this. So I think that it's part of what we do. I mean, we don't have that designated person anymore, but certainly a bio or a warden or the access folks that we now have hired in every region could assist with this. But yeah, that's up to you. I mean, I don't think that's a bad idea to have you or Stephanie in there doing that. I do think if you leave it up to the organizations without a point person, or the groups without a point person, it could suffer, and that would be a shame. So yeah, I think we'd be supportive of this, but it's something that I think that somebody's going to have to take on and be a point person for.
Thoughts, questions, comments?
I think this one's simple. I think we could vote.
Let's go. Just go first.
Based on what Deb just said, I would hope that FWP would get more involved, meaning that, I get that Chuck and Stephanie would be the first, help with the first meeting. And if you want to continue to be in that role, that's certainly fine. But if your intent is to be able to step away from it again after you get it started, FWP is going to have to take some sort of role that says we're committed to making this happen.
Yeah, or maybe more importantly, the groups are, because FWP will, we don't want them driving the ship.
Correct.
So I'm hoping that the groups will appoint maybe co-chairman, and then they start calling their meetings, they set their agenda, and then we just vanish from the scene. But
got it.
So that was our intent.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions? Okay. Are we comfortable saying what is it here? Yes. No, we do not need the text. Or can't remember which ones I do. No's and yeses first. I'll write it down, definitely. So no, we do not need the text, or yes, we need the text. And the text being adding these two additional names to it. Are we comfortable going forward? Okay. Aaron.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Brent, not here. Chuck.
Yes.
Juska.
Yes.
Keith.
Yes.
Ian.
Yes.
Matt.
Yes.
Race.
Yes.
Scott T.
Yes.
Scott V.
Yes.
Stacy.
Yes.
Stephanie.
Yes.
Good thing we had Chuck and Stephanie definitely say yes, so then we really have issues. Okay, so next we're going to vote on the intent, just to confirm. So this vote will determine if the intent of the recommendation has changed from the original vote by the Elk Management Citizen Advisory Group. A vote of support indicated by a verbal confirmation is necessary from 9 members for the intent of this recommendation to be considered the same or unchanged from the original vote by the Elk Management Citizen Advisory Group. If fewer than 9 members are present at the time of the vote, the members not in attendance will be contacted via email and provided a deadline to respond to the vote. Members that do not respond to the email for a vote will be considered a no. The intent is not the same as the original recommendation that was voted on by the Elk Management Citizen Advisory Group. When you hear your name called, please verbally indicate if you agree that the intent of the recommendation is the same or unchanged from the original vote by the Elk Management Citizen Advisory Group by saying yes, or if you believe the intent is not the same or has changed from the original vote by the Elk Management Citizen Advisory Group by saying no. Again, that is yes if you believe that the intent is the same or has not changed, yes if it is unchanged and has remained the same, or no if it is not the same and has changed. Okay. Aaron.
Yes.
Brent. Chuck.
Yes.
Juska.
Yes.
Okay. Heath.
Yes.
Ian.
Yes.
Matt.
Yes.
Grace.
Yes.
Okay. Scott T.
Yes.
Scott V.
Yes.
Stacy.
Yes.
Stephanie.
Yes.
Congratulations. I think we have cleaned up all of our recommendations. How does it feel? We're excited. We're very excited, right? We're very, very excited. I'm going to keep going. You probably need a bit of a break to some extent, but we're just going to keep going and talk a little bit about recommendations moving forward into the future. and what that looks like, and then next steps. And I do need to make some space for Deb to close out. So thinking about, we've talked a little bit about recommendations, making sentence recommendations and things along, well, not full recommendations, but sentences for FWP to consider. So that will be our conversation at this point. And we also need to discuss potentially ranking all of our recommendations. So first, I'd like to take a pulse on folks and see if we need to rank our recommendations, and then we can dive into if we need to make sentences or follow up overall, any cleanup items that we need to do. Does that sound reasonable? I know I'm talking fast. We've got limited time. Okay. Yes, let's rank recommendations. No, let's not. Sound like a good path forward to take the pulse? Okay. So let's start. Aaron, where are you on ranking recommendations? Yes or no?
No, sorry.
Okay, thank you. So, oh, where do we go? Brent, not here. Chuck?
No.
Druska?
No.
Okay, Heath?
No.
Okay, Ian?
No.
Okay, Matt?
No.
Thank you. Race?
No.
Okay, Scott T?
No.
Scott V?
No.
Okay, Stacy?
No.
Stephanie?
No.
Okay, perfect. So we will not rank recommendations. We will submit them all as one big chunk to FWP. The other component that we need to look at is overall the recommendations that we've created and additional statements or comments that you want to make. So from that, we've made a couple comments here. We've talked a little bit about overcrowding. We've talked about non-residents. We've talked about that special B tag. I know that Ian has sent a list of additional recommendations. I do want to turn your attention to this document here. This was the original document that was sent out with all of our different recommendations. They had 52 of them in there, and then we consolidated them thanks to Stephanie putting groups together. So these were all of our recommendations that we started with. Thinking about those different recommendations that we've passed forward or moved forward. So most of these in the bold, I believe we sent to the sounding board. There were additional ones in here, like developing a education campaign for hunters on transporting elk, including carcasses, and field dressing can unintentionally transmit disease. We had some of those recommendations scattered throughout. And so I just wanted to turn our attention to that document. You should all have access to it and make sure that you do. These were the additional recommendations. The block management, utilize the dead week, coordination. These were all sort of clustered together as potential recommendations. And then down here is where I want to turn your attention because we have the recommendation disease, and then other has some of those oddball ones that were there. I did not incorporate Ian's into this process, but I do want to highlight that we do have this document from previously as well. It's a lot of information to go through in 30 minutes or less, and in reality, it's going to be 15 minutes or less so that we can have an effective closeout. Keith.
Looking through this, a lot of these little things are tied into
yes
things that we already went through. I don't
yes.
think I don't think there's any way to. I'm not trying to sound negative, but I think it's worthless right now.
I just want to call your attention to documents, make sure that we're closing everything out. We have everything in every space that we need. Every rock is overturned and examined fully. That's a long way of me saying, where do you guys want to go next? We've finalized our recommendations for you guys to feel like you've completed, satisfied your discussions here as a committee. This is our last meeting. So where do you guys need to go to make sure that this is an effective closeout for you? Chuck.
Well, I think at this late hour, for us to do anything really meaningful without the right kind of thought into it, we could probably get ourselves in trouble, which we might be already. I don't know. But, we've got some good, thoughtful recommendations to go forward with. And maybe we didn't turn over every stone, but we sure tipped over a lot of them. And so I think we ought to just close out with the recommendations that are voted on and on the table.
Got a lot of thumbs up on that and head nods. Okay. Ian.
I guess I'd maybe make one comment, it got brought up in the comments early on. We touched on it multiple times, the overcrowding and whatnot. I don't know. I guess, yeah, just looking at those overall out of state hunting license sales, like if I was to say one thing that I think we really overlooked is that in the group. And I don't know, I didn't see it until later when I was looking at the document, but I mean, overall hunters on the landscape, waterfowl, upland bird, deer, elk, cow tags, doe tags, whatever. I mean, it looks like there's been a really significant increase to a point where there's about 1 in 3 hunters on the landscape as non-resident. I think it'd be a disservice if we didn't at least bring something up about that. I don't know.
Stephanie?
I would just second that. I think that's probably, I think this group has been so dynamic and we've done so many awesome things, come up with some great ideas. But I think we kind of missed that particular mark until late in the game, unfortunately, and didn't have time to explore it. And also because the non-resident issue isn't just elk, it's like Ian was saying, turkeys, upland birds, waterfowl, deer, etc., bee tags. But other states are really starting to pull back on non-residents on what tags. And I know it's a huge money maker for the department. I appreciate non-resident participation, but the quality of hunting in Montana is declining rapidly. And I think that that's a big piece of the pie. So just to encourage FWP to kind of look at that and see what can be done and research.
Druska.
Can we just make that recommendation for, like to send off that everything Stacy or Stephanie just said and that Ian was saying, because if we really did miss non-residents, then we should at least put it out there so they're thinking about it.
So maybe instead of, I'm going to tweak that because I don't think that we're going to make a full recommendation at this point in time, but maybe a statement. Okay.
Yeah, just a statement that says FWP should look into effects non-resident hunters have.
Look into effects non-resident hunters have. Okay. Aaron.
Yep, I agree on that, wholeheartedly on that. And while we may have missed the boat, there's still 2 other working groups, right, that are out there trying to develop new deals. So hopefully one of them can pick that up for us.
Beautiful. I like that optimism, Aaron. And I just want to be clear, it's non-residents, and we're not talking specifically about overcrowding. I know that those were combined. We talk about those sort of related, but I want to be very specific. We're talking about the effects of non-resident hunters, or are we saying we want FWP to evaluate overcrowding as well? Just to clarify.
I'll defer to Hunter. I don't know.
Okay. Thank you, Druska.
I would just say have FWP look into overcrowding issues on public and how non-resident hunters play into that. I think that would, just that statement,
yeah,
might help.
Okay. Any other thoughts, questions, comments? So not a full recommendation, but this is the sentence that we're going to say is FWP should explore overcrowding on public lands and how non-resident hunters play into it. Okay, we do not need a formal vote because it's not a formal recommendation, I believe. Okay. Any other closing remarks? excitement. You will no longer have to hear you're on mute, or Stephanie, you have a residual hand. We're excited about this. We're very excited about how we've changed the world. Oh, Scott, you actually have a hand up.
I would like to just compliment everybody. Everybody was professional, and I thought we had a pretty good group, even with me getting my ass kicked twice. I think 11-1 on votes. I thought everybody did awesome, and so I just like to compliment everybody. I mean, everybody else is complimenting us, but I'd like to compliment the group that everybody did a phenomenal job. And Daruska, you're probably the most eloquent speaker out of all of us. So nobody's gonna speak for the public. I like you speaking because you do a pretty good job at it. But everybody, great job, and I'm impressed with everybody.
Yeah. Echo that. And Scott, thanks for being the one speaking your mind too with your votes and letting us know what it was. We appreciate that. Any other?
I have to say, we were pretty lucky. If the wrong people were in this group, we could have blown ourselves apart. So we did good. How's that for eloquent?
Perfect. Okay. Ian, yeah.
I just wanted to say I appreciate everybody putting up with me. I was pretty close to being that wrong person on the group, so.
You push the group in good ways. You get your thoughts out. You need to do it. Everybody needs to have their thoughts heard. Do good. Well, it's been a pleasure. I'm going to miss these 4-hour meetings, sort of, not fully. It will be unfortunate not to see you guys consistently. I think that you guys have done some great work, and I really, really liked how Hank highlighted that you really reflect Montana overall. I thought that was a beautiful statement. Really resonated with me. Deb, you are on camera. I know you have closing remarks, and I know you were slotted for more time than this, so I apologize in advance for that. But please take it away, Deb.
Well, I don't know if I'll be as eloquent as Driska. I don't really have any remarks prepared. I do want to share again, just repeat what we're planning to do again is take all these recommendations after Kimberly puts them in a template. We'll take all those recommendations, legal and fiscal analysis. They will go to Hank, and then we'll put them out for public comment. Hopefully by the end of August, I expect them to be out. It really depends on the fiscal analysis. I don't think the legal analysis will be too extensive, but the fiscal analysis could be, and she couldn't give me a date until she sees the final recommendations. So, but I think they'll be out by the end of August. We'll probably prioritize the ones that might have to have some legislative involvement. So we'll probably prioritize those and get those out first, just because we need to get them to the legislature earlier. But as for all of you, I just hope, I mean, Montana's a big state, but it's a small world. And I hope I run into you guys face to face. That was my only regret here, is that we couldn't have any of these meetings in person. I really rather enjoy the in-person meetings and get to know you guys and have a maybe adult beverage in the form of coffee, or afterwards Driska's going, oh yeah, that would have been nice. So yeah, I really do. I hope if you guys are ever in Helena, you stop in headquarters and stop in and say hi, because I'd love to meet you in person and shake your hand and thank you in person. I'm sure this won't be it. I'm sure I'll be reaching out, and I will certainly email all of you when we put this out for public comment. Thank you for just doing this. It's not it's kind of a thankless job, even though you heard thank you from a lot of members of the public. I'm sure you heard, well, you saw some of you got a little peek at what we deal with on a daily basis sometimes. I just thank you for putting up with that and doing all your good work. So really appreciate it, but I'll be in touch when we get this out for a public comment.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Deb. Okay, so those are our next steps and action items. Are we set? Are we ready? Okay.
Wow, ending early.
No.
Maybe I'll make a comment before everybody's gone.
Yes.
I enjoyed this well as much as anybody. And, one thing I might say, especially for some of you that are less on the landowner side, Ian and Stephanie and Heath, especially Scott. I think you guys need to really stay involved in these issues and these other working groups like Chuck and Stephanie are going to be involved in. I really liked how, open and understanding you are on the landowner side. And I understand I represent kind of a larger landowner, and I tried to intentionally kind of be a little quieter on some of these, but it's really refreshing to see your attitudes. I mean, Matt and everybody, and Aaron, and there's, and Chuck and Drewska, we're all kind of on that, a little bit maybe on the landowner side at times. Stacy, I think you might be in that group with us too. But it was really refreshing. And I think one thing that I would recommend, you guys were all very impressive, and I hope you guys stay engaged on future issues, because I think that understanding of each other's issues is really the big thing we got to do to really solve, problems going forward. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Reese. Hope you stay engaged as well. We've got Chuck, then Stephanie, and Ian.
Yeah, so Ray said it so well that I don't have to repeat it, but some of my biggest exposure to the sportsman side has been through some of the statewide associations, and it's rarely been this cordial, or might I say this productive. So it gave me a great deal of hope moving forward that we're going to move the ball on this issue, and it might not come out of this committee, but we started it here, and let's just keep at it, because it'd be too bad to let this momentum drop. So yeah, thank you guys, all of you, for your candor and your especially for the courtesy that we've had throughout. And then finally, one question: will this group be sent the final version of our recommendations, so we have those in our pocket, not wait for the Fish and Game recommendation?
As soon as I send them to Deb, I can send them to you guys as well.
Yep.
Yeah, good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Give me a couple of days. 2. Stephanie, and then Ian.
I also just want to say thanks to this group. I actually really enjoyed getting to know everybody, getting to learn all different facets of this complex issue. I agree. I hope that statewide landowners and sportsmen can kind of use this as a model of how to, have civil discussions and get to know all sides of the story. And hopefully, we're a small group, but hopefully a good model for future engaging behaviors between sportsmen and landowners going forward. And, you can see that, hey, we might be on the other side of the fence, but, we all share the same goals and love being in Montana. And I think, I don't know, I just really appreciate everybody. And it was nice getting to know you all.
Thanks, Stephanie. Ian?
Yeah, no, likewise. I mean, Stephanie said most of it. It's great to get some different perspectives and just learn, especially from the landowner group, some of the different concerns and whatnot. It's really, really interesting to sit back and hear some of that stuff, and get rid of some of the preconceived notions and whatnot. Like appreciate it, Race. Like Matador Cattle Ranch, that should be the poster child for block management and other stuff in the state. That's provided a huge opportunity. Like if I ever go hunt anywhere and it is on private, I'm one of those guys from Kalispell, so I show up down in Dillon. So it's I appreciate everything that you guys have done to keep that in block, and hopefully that continues to happen in the future. So that's cool.
Thanks, Ian. Great group of folks. Great work you guys have done. And remember, you're going to stay in touch, because you still have to champion these moving forward. You are bound by it. I'm just kidding, not bound, but please do stay in touch with each other and move these recommendations forward. for change. You guys have really started the ball on good change.
Thanks, Kimberly. Appreciate all your work, and you too, Deb.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank
And
you.
now I'm leaving.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Goodbye.
Thanks, bye.